grab last one.
And 2501, the address, is on
It's the
the
worst drawing
other
I've
building.
seen.
It's on the little red building with the garage
It's
facing
the
the
little
road.
red with the garage. Is what they're gonna-
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Let's
I
come to order slowly here.
Drew, one last thing. I know you
Well,
want
A, there's no
Josh,
proper site plan.
DPW
Even-
here for the next case
even
after this, the
They
2401.
should be
opinion,
accepted.
Kate should
He,
say.
No.
well, I thought you
I agree.
I thought you wanted him here. He will come,
So
but I just need to
feel very
text him
strongly that we
when
should
we're getting
discuss
close.
that
And he'll come right down.
When it comes up.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm about to be held over.
Are we gonna do your minutes of February?
So I was hoping not to be.
Yeah, we're not gonna do the March ones. I'm still
No, I
working
know the
on
March
them. I'm
Yeah.
doing the best.
This one was 15 pages.
Okay,
Doing it in my car.
let's see, it's 6 o'clock. Actually, a couple minutes past 6. Tonight is, what is it, April 16th, 2025. This is a zoning board of adjustment for Madison. Let's see. You want to leave? Sure. Okay. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so so we're going to begin the evening with the case 2408, which is the continuation of the cell phone tower case. Now, we've had several meetings where we've had a lot of public testimony, so what we want to do is continue with the procedure tonight. So where we left off last time was Attorney Springer was about to go into his explanation of the 5 criteria. I'll let him begin that in a minute. No, just a second. And then, just so you know, then the board has to start assembling our findings of fact, okay? I'm going to leave the public hearing open because there's a possibility that Attorney Springer might need to clarify something. We might ask for a question from the audience, but I'm not looking for a lot of public testimony during that time frame. But it is there in the event that you hear something which is in fact an error in a fact or something like that, and you want to say something, that sort of, just so I have an idea what's going on this evening. So unless there's a lot of need for public testimony, we've had 3 meetings with plenty of public testimony, which is forming some of the foundation for our findings of fact. So just so you have an expectation of what's going on. We do have other items on the agenda, so we will probably wind it down around 8 o'clock, but we don't know exactly where we'll be. So that's not quite as hard this week as this month as it was in previous weeks. So let's see. Do we need to read the notices again, or we've already opened this case, so we're just continuing, right?
Right, it's a continuation from
Right.
March.
Okay. Okay. So Attorney Springer.
I'll explain to me that we have 4 board members.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, we only have 4 board members here tonight. It's not likely that we're going to get as far as voting on all of the. Okay. But are you okay with continuing with 4 board members? So Sharon is out of town, and Mark is chairman of the planning board, so he cannot participate as a voting member of this board for this case.
Can I have 1 second?
Yes.
Will I be elevated or not?
We are.
Am I ultimate?
We'll be happy to proceed, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. I'm going to elevate Jennifer Scaife to a voting member. So we have 4 voting members tonight. But as I said, it's not likely that we're going to get to actually voting on the things, but we'll see where we get. Okay.
Thank you again for the record. My name is John Springer from Springer Law. I represent the applicant, Jim and I'm joined by Victor Gruen, who is one of the principals of that company. I do I am going to address the variance criteria. I'm going to do that as quickly as I can, but there are a couple points I want to
Sure.
circle back on, because we submitted some materials to the board since the last meeting in response to questions from the board and requests from the board. And we've heard a lot of talk about the generators, a lot of objections about the generators, and we submitted a manufacturer's spec sheet for a typical generator which a carrier would use at one of these sites, and some information about noise levels. And I just want to make sure the public understands, because this is not something that I think is general knowledge. I didn't know this until I started doing this work. But the spec sheet shows that the sound level produced by one generator, if it's sort of the typical generator, which I think is actually smaller than the generator right outside the door here in the school, it's 67 decibels at 23 feet away. And if you look at the noise chart that we submitted, you can find one on the internet. They're all over the place. That's about the 67 decibels is basically conversational level.
It's about what we're experiencing right now.
It's about what we're experiencing now, to my understanding. A vacuum cleaner, by comparison's sake, as shown by the chart I submitted, is at 73 decibels. Now, when you add sources of sound, you don't add the decibels. It's not straight math, okay? So if you have one source, I'm just gonna use 100 decibels because it's easy. If you have one source producing 100 decibels, then you add a second source also doing 100 decibels. You don't then have 200 decibels of noise. You have 103 decibels of noise. That's physics or sound science, whatever you want to call it. And again, you can check this on the internet. I want to read a short clip or excerpt from what I did submit. Decibels are logarithmic quantities and do not compound like common numerical values. If two sound sources each produce 100 decibels and are operating concurrently, they would only produce 103 decibels, not 200, as might be expected. Four equal sources at 100 decibels operating simultaneously would result in a total sound pressure level of 106 decibels. As the number of equal sources doubles, the decibels only go up by 3 decibels. And if you have one noise source or sound source that is louder than a second sound source, the second sound source isn't considered at all. So if you have 100 decibels and 90 decibels, you put those two together, you get 100 decibels. And that's important because I think people are thinking, well, if there are 3 or 4 generators up there and they're all going at the same time, it's going to be really, really, really noisy. It's not. 67 decibels from one source. If you add a second source, it's 70 decibels. If you add 2 more sources, it's 73 decibels. And according to the chart I handed out that I printed off from the internet, 73 decibels is about the sound of a vacuum cleaner. And that's at 23 feet away from the generator. And I think I'd have to look, but we're 200 plus away from the property line at the nearest point. So I thought that was important to point out. The board also asked for real estate appraisals showing no impact on property values which we submitted. They were quite lengthy. I'm not going to go through them, just other than to say they are quite detailed. They were from residential areas. One was in Freiburg, Maine, and one was in Londonderry, New Hampshire. They dealt with existing residential homes that had views of existing cell towers and then got sold. The appraisers actually reached out to the brokers involved. Yes, the chair just held up the study. Reached out to the brokers involved. On occasion, reached out to the actual buyer. They all said that it had no value, that it had no impact. And there are pictures that, when you compare it to the balloon test that we submitted, the pictures in the appraisals are far more visible. Some of them, there's one instance in there where one house had a view, that type of view of 3 cell towers, not just 1. And the appraisers found that there was no diminution of property value. I also want to talk very briefly about Mr. Pegasik's supplemental report to the board. That was submitted to the board just before the last hearing. I didn't receive a copy, and I'm not complaining about this. I didn't receive a copy until after the hearing. But we feel that supplemental report supports what we're saying, what our report said. Mr. Pegasik found that the GMR site provides more coverage, especially along Route 153, than the Vertex site in Freedom. And it is at far better signal strength than what the Freedom Tower might be able to provide to that gap in coverage. And that, I would point out, is using Mr. Pegasik's defined service area, quote unquote. He doesn't really say, you know, he drew sort of a rectangular area and said, this is the service area I'm considering. He doesn't really explain why he used that rectangular area. I'm not going to argue about that other than to say his service area in his report doesn't include a lot of our coverage area. And so if you look at our coverage area, the percentage of what we cover, which is not covered by the Vertex site of Freedom, goes up even more. And again, at far better signal strengths. And then finally, we understand that we have a lot of opposition in this gym tonight. We've had it every meeting. We're trying our best to address all the issues. One of the issues that has been raised is, well, we don't like it 150, it can be extended up to 20 feet, it can be higher in the future, et cetera, et cetera. And what we will do, we will voluntarily agree to drop the height to 135 feet as a condition of approval. We're asking for 150, we'll drop it to 135. The reason we picked 135 is because that allows us to have a center line at 130. The next center line would be at 120. The next center line would be at 110. So those are the three top slots in the tower. This tower is designed for 4 carriers. The bottom slot, all bets are off in our opinion in terms of what kind of coverage that last slot affords. We believe that there are trees up there between 100 and 110 foot range. There are some white pines up there that we believe are that high. And by doing the 130, 120, 110, we feel confident that all of those spots are going to clear the trees. Again, we're not convinced about the lower slot, the last one, the fourth one down from the top, so to speak. Those trees presumably will continue to grow, but we feel that this is a good faith gesture to the town. We thought it was an excellent balloon test in terms of the results. If you recall, we flew 3 balloons, 170, 150, 130. The 170 you could see a few times, the 150 once in a while. Nobody saw the 130 balloon. So we feel by dropping the tower height by 135, we are making a real concession, and whatever minimal visual impact one might think was there at 150, we feel disappears entirely at 130 or 135. So, with all that, I'd like to go through the variance criteria. And again, I'm going to try to be quick, Mr. Chair. The point was made last hearing that we were asking for 5 variances, and you know, the inference was, therefore, this project should be denied because we're asking for so many variances. And as I said before, that, in my opinion, is a result of a very restrictive ordinance. Very few ordinances, for instance, have a requirement to use a mast pole rather than a monopole tower. And if you recall, and I'm using this as an example, a mast tower is slimmer for sure, but you can't have an array and you can't put the antennas side by side. So you have to stack the antennas, the receiving antennas and the propagating antennas on top of one. So each carrier takes up twice as much space on a mast as it does on a monopole. And I've been doing this work for a long, long time. I'm not sure I've ever done a mast. I might have done 1 or 2, but the overwhelming number of towers that I do that I see are the monopole type. All four of the 5 criteria, four of the 5 requests that we're making for variances deal, in my opinion, directly with visual impact. We're asking for height variance, we're asking for the monopole variance, we're asking for a variance to the extent necessary from the provision that says the telecommunication facility, quote, shall not be visible above the ridge line from public roads, end quote. And we're asking for a variance to the extent necessary from the section that says any antenna array shall have a diameter of no more than 4 feet, exclusive of the diameter of the mount. I think all of those go to visible or visibility issues. And I think all of those, in my opinion, are taken care of in a large degree by dropping this down to 135 feet. Because you're simply not going to be able to see this tower, in my opinion. Having said that, the first 2 variance requests, the first 2 variance criteria, which I always take together. One is the variances will not be contrary to public interest, and 2, the spirit of the zoning ordinance is observed. And to determine whether a variance is contrary to public interest and consistent with the spirit of the ordinance, the issue, according to the New Hampshire Supreme Court in a number of cases, is whether to grant the ordinance would, quote, unduly and in a marked degree conflict with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance's basic zoning objectives. One way to determine that is to determine whether the variance would alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and another is whether the variance would threaten public health, safety, or order. In this situation, on this case, we have an existing mature tree canopy on the lot. We have a situation where, in my opinion, it's undisputed that there is a significant gap in coverage here. I'd like to point out that Mr. Gassick sent in 2 reports. Not once did he challenge our assertion that there's a significant gap in coverage. To the extent people are saying, in effect, well, the Vertex Tower is going to cover it, well then, that's, in my opinion, an acknowledgement that a significant gap in coverage exists. And that is a major point under federal law. There will be little visual impact, as I just said. I think no visual impact. There's no historical, cultural, archaeological, or related resources that are impacted by our proposal. And that's true for all of the requested variances. The one variance I didn't really call out earlier is the fall zone variance, where we need tower height away from property lines. We meet that in all directions except to the right. As we look at the plans, I guess that would be the east. And that property to the east is owned by the same landlord, or same property owner who is our landlord.
Just the point of that property line is actually the town line, is that
It's the
not?
town.
Right, it's not, yeah, so it's,
Thank you.
yes.
It's a town line, but they have it as a different lot, so I'm
Right.
treating that as a property. But that's also, I think, a valid point. And so we think we meet those criteria regarding all the variances. And I would note, and this applies pretty much to all of the variance requests, or all the variance criteria, but if I said that I thought the ridgeline provision and the diameter of the antenna array, if the board is going to deny us on those grounds, on those criteria, I would ask that you specifically identify the ridgeline at issue and the street at issue, the public road at issue, and also define exactly what you mean when you say antenna array exclusive of the diameter of the mount, because that's where I think the ambiguity lies. The next criteria is substantial justice is done by granting the variance. And again, this is related to the substantial justice element, or the prior 2 elements, but the guiding factor on this is that any loss to the individual that is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice. Correct focus is whether the general public stands to gain from the denial of the variance. And here we submit there is no gain to the general public being the town. You're gonna close a significant gap in coverage. You're gonna bring coverage to where there is none. That's undisputed. There's little visual impact. I get that the people here feel vehemently and are vehemently opposed to this project. I get that. But if you take away the visibility issue and you take away the noise issue, which I think you have to based on what we've submitted, what is the basis of the objection here? I don't want a tower. That's it. That's not sufficient. And I also know, and I'm not gonna pound this into the ground, but I said at the beginning, I'll say it again, virtually everybody objecting to this project has a cell phone. And they use it. And they're drawing coverage from towers from other areas of town, other areas of the state. As they drive up from Rhode Island, they're pulling coverage from all the towers every step of the way. And again, if you grant us the variance, say, on the monopole, if you grant us a variance on the antenna array, no one would know. No one would know. In other words, if we didn't call out that we're putting up a monopole, I'd be willing to bet no one would ever know. Not that we would do that. But they're very, very similar. The next one is literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. Unnecessary hardship, as we know, means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property, and the proposed uses are reasonable. We think this is a very reasonable use, given gap in coverage. And we don't believe there is any fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the ordinance sections that we are asking variances from and the specific application of those ordinances here. In other words, we're seeking a height variance now to 135 feet, but you can't see it. What's the purpose of a height variance? To keep it from being too high. It's also important to understand, and we cite this case in our project narrative. I don't like necessarily citing case law at these hearings, but the New Hampshire Supreme Court in the Daniels case said that in order to ensure compliance with the Federal Telecommunications Act, which we all are subject to, like it or not, a broader, more inclusive view of hardship is required. Specifically, quote, when an application to build a wireless telecommunications tower is designed to fill a significant gap in coverage, the suitability of a specific parcel of land for that purpose should be considered for purposes of determining hardship. The fact that a proposed location is centrally located with a gap, which we are, has correct topography, which we do, or is of adequate size to effectively eliminate the gap in coverage, which we do, are factors which may make the property unique under federal law. We think we meet those criteria to a T. And here, as I said earlier, for all the variances, there is really no specific reason to hold us to those provisions, given that now you're not going to be able to see the tower, you're not going to be able to see the antenna arrays, etc. And for the fall zone, again, for this one, the purpose of fall zone is theoretically, if the tower collapses or something falls off it, it's staying on your property. Well, it will here. And as I just pointed out, to the east, yes, we cross over the town line. It's a different property, if you will. But it's still the landlord's property. And then finally, the values of surrounding properties are not diminished. And again, I cite the reports we issued. There's very limited traffic. There's very limited nuisance factors. I think I've addressed the noise pretty well. And so for all those reasons, we don't believe there will be any diminution in property values. And that's for all the variances. Again, I've tried to do this quickly, Mr. Chair. I stand on the written submission as well, as amended by our offer tonight to agree to drop the height to 135. Be happy to answer any questions you have.
Board have any questions?
I have one.
Yes, go ahead.
Here, thank,
You need to get close to your mic.
oh, sorry, I'll grab this one. Thank you, Mr. Springer. Is it? Yeah, it's on. I have two questions, actually. Well, actually, one question. When the 135 feet, is that still subject to you don't need to come back and talk about adding 20 feet?
The state law that allows that is in place.
Right.
So whatever the requirements are to do that extension would apply.
Right. So it could, in this scenario, be 155 feet max, adding
Yes.
20 to the 130.
Yep.
It could.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick question. When you came and presented this to the board, why didn't you consider a camouflage pole? They are around, a lot of people use them. It should have been in the proposal if you thought that might be a good thing.
Right. But we don't think it's a good thing.
No?
Because, have you ever seen a camouflage
Yes,
tree?
I have.
They're ugly. They really are.
Drive by it 5 times, you don't know it's there.
Well, that's the same works as a tower, too. I mean, how often do you, and I'm not arguing with you, I'm just
I
standing
understand.
on the point. How often do you notice telephone poles as you drive by them?
No.
You don't. And with this, I'm sorry, can I ask people not to make comments, Mr. Chair, while I'm talking?
It's appropriate, yes.
Thank you. We didn't offer it because A, we thought the visibility was gonna be very low to begin with. And B, we thought they're ugly. I mean, that's honestly why we didn't do it. And now we believe it's even less necessary, the lower height.
Good. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Then what I think we can do is if any members of the public wish to respond to those particular things, I'd ask you not to repeat testimony that's already been given, okay? I mean, we have all that testimony. However, if there's something that, you want to say, then it's okay. And you can come up. Have you been sworn in before? Yes. Come up and state your name.
Hi, my name is Ellen McDonald. I live on the hill. So there was a lot of opinion in the things that he talked about. I just typed in on my cell phone tower effect on property values. I don't know what opinion or what studies, but if you typed in the same thing, over 90% of home buyers and renters are less interested in properties near cell towers. Negative price effect of 2.65%. Cell phone sold for 1.282 less. So I'm not sure what's in that report, but everything I've looked at clearly speaks to a decrease. I have a friend who's a realtor, and I asked him the next day after this last meeting, can you tell me about the effects on property values? And he laughed, and he said, well, it's not good. So that's what I wanted to know.
So you've been sworn in before too, right? State your name.
John Sexton, 87 Game Pine Road. Whenever there's a perceived problem, sometimes we overthink the solution to that problem. I know all of us have driven across the Kank at some point in their life. And as soon as you turn onto the Kank, there's a sign that says, no gas, next 32 miles. Now, Mr. Springer here would say that's not a solution to the problem. We should put a gas station halfway up the canyon, maybe clear out one of those vistas and make that the new place. But really, the sign does the job, and we could solve this problem very easily by, at the intersection of 153 and Bennett Road, as you're coming up, and at Stark Road and 153, you're coming south, just put a sign. No cell service next 10 miles, problem solved,
No, it's not.
and everybody's okay. Just a thought.
Can I respond? Can I respond?
Yes, if you wish to.
I would just like to respond quickly. No gas for 32 miles is an inconvenience. A fatal crash in the middle of a dead zone is a whole different ball of wax. And if I need to call an ambulance and I've got no cell service, what do? Am I gonna bleed out on the side of the road?
Doesn't 911 work?
Nope,
Yeah.
It does.
not always, not always. It does not always work.
I was already sworn in last time, Andy Friedel, to your statement. The Freedom Tower looks like it's going in. There was no opposition to it. That's gonna cover that whole area from 25 even up to King Pine. I know Colton has some data to say that the decibel data was somewhat misread, but he'll go into that, because I don't wanna rain on his parade. But I must reiterate that Mr. Springer was deceitful about the fact that there were going to be generators at all. He was also deceitful about the original height of the tower. And last meeting, I gave my wife a whole bunch of data, not just from a specific appraisal person. This was actual data from the realtor, all of the realty things that can go up to almost 10% of property value loss for anybody that can actually see a tower from their property. You were given that information last meeting. If you don't have it, I'll certainly come down to Town Hall tomorrow and bring you guys all another copy of it. But this whole thing has been somewhat of sham. They're coming in here trying to pretend that it's like for the people, when the majority of the people here don't even want it. It's really just to line the pockets of whatever, GMG Communications, because they're gonna get money for each provider that puts a service up there. There's already service up there, guys. Guys, you joke, when you have a whole town opposing it, a normal business person is gonna say, you know what, I'm listening to the people, it shouldn't be here, and they're gonna walk away. But it's all about mighty power for this guy.
Oh, let me not respond directly to that, but he made a comment about decibel, just a second. Decibels being misunderstood, and I do want to say this. Last time, when we had a discussion, I made a statement that 70 decibels, minus 70 decibels, was the bottom level of, what do you call it, not coverage, the strength of signal that's usable. In fact, I had misread that. 70 is considered by many carriers the bottom of an excellent coverage. And so that was a statement of an error, which was made. However, we were not yet at the point of doing our fact finding, which we hope to start, or detailing our facts. So that if you know, just so you're aware of that statement, I'm well aware that statement was incorrect and represented an earlier level of research into the operation. The implication of that statement was that I said, well, perhaps we don't, you know, the coverage is inadequate from Freedom. In fact, the coverage that Mr. IDK, I can't pronounce his name, Pegasic, said was that, in fact, the coverage provided from Freedom at minus 65 decibels is actually a sufficient coverage. Just to make the comment that, you know, I recognize that I made a statement that wasn't entirely accurate in terms of its implications already.
I'm Colton Dow, and I was sworn in last time. A couple things, actually, I wanted to share with you for fact-finding. Is the 130-foot tower. is visible from the lake. And then these are the two maps, the coverage maps. And
Right.
so when Mr. Springer brings up
I need you to go back to the
the
microphone.
coverage area,
Okay,
when he brings up the coverage area in comparison to the Freedom Tower, so the orange and green is the proposed tower by GMR, and the green and yellow is the Veritex map. If you look at the coverage area, the Freedom map covers 66% of the coverage area that this tower is going to cover. What's interesting about that is the coverage area from the Veritex tower is actually more of 153. GMR has a tower that covers areas unpopulated. So both towers cover Fox Road, King Vine Road, 153, and parts of East Madison, and actually more of the drivable area. Mr. McAllister brings up a good point. You have a car wreck, you want to use your cell phone. When you're up, the moose at the bears, the random hiker maybe that's bushwhacking through Lyman Ridge does not need service from the GMR tower. And so, although it does cover more area for the blanket coverage, it doesn't provide a lot more service for the people that actually would require service in comparison to the Freedom Tower if we're talking about that. I understand that the Freedom Tower is not really the main focus of this conversation, although it does tie in to this conversation because this is sort of a project of regional impact where we're right on the town line, as you mentioned, with Eaton and Freedom. The Freedom Tower doesn't have homes and neighborhoods and recreation around it. It's also not visible from the lake. And so I think when Mr. Springer brings up that the federal law says that King Pine is a unique location and that we must approve it for the safety of the people, it's really not that unique of a location, and there are better locations. Again, to the balloon test, I mean, you've seen the pictures, but there's all kinds of things with that. One, the location was inaccurate. It was windy that day, and for some reason it was delayed 2 hours. Most of the time, the air is really still in the morning, and when the air is still, from the point of connection to the top balloon will be very straight. When you add wind, you lower the height of the balloon. So these pictures from the lake were taken around 3 p.m. And as we all know, it's windier in the afternoon. So I just wonder why we had a 2-hour delay from 7 a.m. to 9. And you can see that there is, I mean, they say that's why they use the 3 balloons, but it's visible. You can see the change of the angle. So I think in a lot of these balloon test pictures, the actual height of the tower, one would also be more obtrusive than just this small balloon because it doesn't represent the size of the tower, but also that would actually be higher. And then Mr. Springer brings up the service area. It wasn't really laid out on either of the maps where the service area was, just to be clear. So I'm not sure how the Veritex Tower, the town radio engineer sort of set the parameters, but it's hard to see without looking at several different maps what the actual service area is. But from what that map that I just handed you shows mostly unpopulated service area. And I think that's pretty much all that I have.
okay, thank you.
Except for the 155-foot tower, which Jennifer's on. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do at this point is ask your indulgence in this sense. We want to begin the discussion of our findings of fact, right? Now, I prefer not to close the public hearing because that allows the board the chance to ask a question of Mr. Springer, or something comes up and we want to ask the public a question that gives us the opportunity to engage you. What I'm asking, though, is that at this point, you have given us your testimony, right? And so I just want to, before we start this, I want to summarize some of the points of testimony that we have received, that when I did my review to start, this process, also make sure all the board members have seen that. So we have received things, several reports from C-squared systems. They did the report that shows that we have the coverage report, all right? The coverage report was also examined by our independent, Mr. How do you say that? Pegasic, excuse me. I don't know, I'll get that straight one of these days. Mr. Pegasic, he confirmed the coverage report that GMR submitted and also did the comparison report for us to see how that fits together. Okay, so then we had that. We also have the required FAA report, which certifies that the tower unlit meets all of the air navigation requirements. Okay, that's part of the record. We requested in the meantime a between things between the town administrator and Mr. Springer, we requested verification that the FCC guidelines were actually met. I mean, there's statements in several places that they are met, but nowhere did it say, okay, this is our understanding of what the FCC guidelines are, and these are the things. Now, the board members should have all received that, but if you haven't, the public has not seen that. And you mentioned it, but you didn't mention, I do want to say that what that report shows and what it intends to do is go and calculate the RF radiation levels as a percentage of the permitted exposure levels. And those antennas are directional. That is, the beams don't broadcast as a uniform sphere. They have lobes and they have vertical extensions and all that sort of stuff. So they make a calculation. That calculation makes an assumption that all four carriers are broadcasting simultaneously at full power. Almost never happens. But if they did, the question is, what is that maximum radiation exposure? Okay, so sorry, I've forgotten the name, C-squared systems did the calculation, and Mr. Begasic verified the calculation was both correct and the correct calculation to answer the question, do they meet the FCC guidelines? Okay, that level was just under 14% of the permitted exposure level at maximum power. Okay, and it at 846 feet from the tower in the direction of the strongest beam. And that is at ground level. Second. And then that drops off at 2,500 feet to 4%, and it continues down from there. So the point is that we have an engineer and a confirmed level of exposure. Now, I understand we received all kinds of information that the FCC guidelines should be reviewed, that they're not current, that they don't represent the thing. The thing is, this board is not competent to make that assessment. And in fact, under federal law, we are required to hold to the FCC guidelines. So we have data here that shows that the maximum exposure is 14%, just under 14% of the permitted exposure level. So from that perspective, now, let's see, there was another piece of information which I just want you to know the data that's been collected. So we have the studies that Mr. Springer referred to from the things. A couple of you also submitted information regarding studies. The National Association of Realtors published a report done by the University of Southern Alabama, which is the source of that figure that was mentioned several times here, a drop of 2.65% based on proximity to the cell phone towers. That measurement is 2,400 feet or less. We have that study. We have that information which we can assess to determine whether Mr. Springer's study is more reliable or whether that study is. But I'm just going through the information that we have available to us. Okay, so So we have information that relates to the questions of radiation safety. We have information from both engineers relating to coverage, and we have some information relating to considerations with respect to property values and aesthetics. That includes the balloon report, which you all saw, or at least is available if you haven't seen it. And we acknowledge that there's varying interpretations of that report, but it is hard data that we have to evaluate as we go through our findings of fact. Does the board want to mention anything that I've forgotten as basic information on the testimony that's been collected?
Wildlife, birds.
Okay, yeah. Attorney Berg, who has an association with Mr. Colton Dow, has submitted information about the negative impact on wildlife, specifically osprey and other birds that nest in or near the towers. Of course, the exposure levels related to humans are measured at specific locations on the ground and not right in front of the antennas. So there's we have information about that. Anything else the board wants to? Okay. Alrighty. Did you want to
elaborate a little bit on the 1,400% or whatever you were?
Oh, okay. Alrighty. I can elaborate. Yeah. Just 1 second. I'll just pull that. Oh, no, you know what? Do we have that on paper?
The what?
The report that was submitted last week. We got the report from. I have it on my computer in any event. What's that?
That was from Attorney Springer?
No. From C Squared Systems on the.
IDK?
No, the one from C-Squared Systems that addresses the question of the level of RF radiation. It came in, you sent it to me by email.
I don't know, I got so much.
If we don't have it on paper, I have it on my computer, I can get it in. Yes, we did, that's a good point, yes. We also have a letter from Professor Chamberlain, who is the former chair of the Department of Electrical Engineering at the University of New Hampshire and has been involved in RF tower design. Yes, we did. Just a minute. Don't search for it. I have it.
It's not this, any of this.
I don't print out.
Okay.
Oh, we have a copy?
My copy, so I need it back.
Yeah, you can have it back. Yeah. Okay, so the question was asked to elaborate on the percentage. This is small, but you can see this curve here. What this curve represents is the percentage, excuse me. So there's a figure here called the maximum permitted exposure. And this curve represents distance on this axis and a percentage of the maximum permitted exposure. This line here is 14% of the permitted exposure. And so you see because of the shape of because the antennas are directional and they also have a vertical component at a very specific point on the ground, in this case 846 feet away from the tower, you have the maximum exposure, which occurs when all of the antennas are broadcasting at maximum power simultaneously. Otherwise, these small curves down here represent the actual exposure from any individual array which is broadcasting at maximum power at the moment. So these are calculated based on empirical data, I'm sure, but they're calculated as opposed to measured because the tower's not there. Okay, so the bottom line is 14% is what that maximum is. And those maximums are based on the table which he's provided here, which explains, based on the frequency of the broadcast, it gives you what level you're allowed to have, and they vary slightly by frequency. And so when he's gone through this thing, what they do is they calculate each level at each frequency and come up with a percentage of the maximum exposure there is, put it all together, and that comes up, all of it together, just under 14% of the maximum permitted exposure. Okay, so that's a report that we have received and has been verified by our engineer that that's an accurate and appropriate representation of the radio frequency exposure given to the public, the general public. People who work on the towers have a different level of exposure that's permitted. This level of exposure is that which is specifically identified for the general public.
Okay, and so, one more question.
Yeah.
So with that being said, you've got that frequency. They want to know exactly the mileage on 153 that this one holds tonight, that is going to from what point-
Well, actually, it's easier just to simply say that I believe it goes up just past Brownfield Road is the one for the Vertex Tower. And
Excuse me, the Vertex Tower being outrageous.
the one in Freedom,
Okay.
okay.
And that goes up all the way to,
Well, it goes up somewhere just past Brownfield Road
that's right up.
on 153,
Okay.
right? And then this one here, yes, you may. I'm trying, the trouble is there's different scales. Where's
I know, it's
Brownfield
hard to
Road?
see.
So where's this Brownfield Road here, right?
So you have purity,
Right, so we come
right?
up,
This is Brownfield, yeah.
right, so this, and this is the GMR,
Yes. So these are the coverages that are quite
Right.
functional, right?
right. So if I'm looking at this map, your question, if I understand, was how far up 153 does the coverage go from the GMR tower? And the answer is that it appears to go somewhat short of Brownfield Road.
What about in the other direction?
Well, in the other direction, well, you can look at the map here.
Okay.
But basically, this goes down into Freedom because, right, and then.
Talking about facts, it might be good to quantify that, right?
It would be, okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea. We could try to quantify, but quantifying it can be done by saying from street to street. You don't have to necessarily say so many miles, but we know on what level we want, so. Well, the point is that we're in the process of coming up with findings of fact, and what I'm hearing from you is you want us to make sure that when we talk about the coverage from these two things, that we actually,
No, it's for me. I'm asking the question.
I understand you're asking.
I want to know what that monopole is going to cover on either side, on either side.
Oh, well, I'm not sure that,
Well,
well, you're asking a question that's difficult, and partially, as our engineer said, because they use different standards for their, when they're, maybe he can answer, okay. So how far east and west of 153, is that what you're asking?
yes.
Okay. See, are these yours? Who's, okay.
Some of the information requested is quantified in the C-squared RF report that we put in at the beginning of the case. At 700 megahertz, for Route 153, we measured as 1.9 miles of coverage. In East Madison Road, 1.4 miles of coverage. At 1900 megahertz, which has the smaller footprint, if you remember, Route 153 is about 0.6 miles and East Madison Road is 0.8 miles. But I would, and I know people are gonna say, well, that's hardly anything. The problem is, and I explained this before, we're building out the network. You have this hole if you will, between the ridge lines. If you're gonna deny a tower because it only covers 2 miles of that road, that gap is never gonna get filled. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Because, you know, I mean, the Freedom Tower doesn't cover any more than we do along that road, and in my opinion, probably less. But you have the ridge line to the east, you have the ridge line to the west, we submitted that information, and we're trying to bring coverage to that gap area. So,
Can I ask?
I'm sorry, when you say what's not enough, the answer is not sufficient, or there's not the coverage?
okay, this gets my point, Mr. Chair, and I don't mean to debate the audience here, but
No.
if you look at the topo maps, that's where the gap is. I mean, to say that's not enough, then that gap is never going to get covered, ever, because
No, I mean, your point is well taken, and part of the issue is topography of the area. You've got ridges on both sides, and you can't, unless you put a tower that's way above those ridges, you can't, no, that's true. The east and west coverage is not what's at stake
Chairman,
here,
can I
yes.
make a comment?
Yes, please.
Satellite. Can I just say that word? The technology of 5G,
say it all you like.
I do, I use it. I carry a Garmin when I hike, and
Okay.
I have satellite coverage, and I have Starlink at home,
Right,
in spite of many beliefs I don't want to have Starlink, but it works.
okay,
And they've already, and phones are going to be coming out with satellite enabled. They already have the SOS on this 6-year-old Apple has SOS calling on it. Galaxy are bringing one out by the end of the year that is satellite and more than just enabled. The technology's in place. Excuse me. Starlink are already speaking with they've got a contract with T-Mobile, which is now called T-Mo, for a year, and it's going on. Etisalat in the Middle East are doing it and coming into Europe. So the technology is moving fast. $42 billion of government money was spent on providing internet coverage to rural areas. Everyone's in a hurry to get it there. I get that. I know. I've been in business. I know that business. However, the technology is possibly moving faster than putting towers up and running cables by all sorts of other companies up our streets. I'm just saying, what is your opinion on that?
totally disagree.
Okay, that's
Totally
your
disagree.
prerogative, absolutely. The question was that. how,
Okay,
you know.
and we've been hearing about satellites since 1996. I can't
It's-
tell you the number of times the board has said to me, what about satellite? Well, here we are in 2024. And there's a reason, I'm sorry, people keep talking.
Yeah, let him speak.
Thank you. There's a reason we're doing this. There's a reason Verizon, T-Mobile,
Yeah,
AT&T,
yes, of course.
all the other companies are doing what they're doing. If they thought satellite was gonna be here tomorrow, they'd act different. That's,
I accept that. I just
Okay.
believe that there's a possibility of shared technologies in unreachable areas. That's all.
I have
Okay, go
I have
ahead.
one question.
Here.
Just one question, Mrs. Springer. You said 700 megahertz, is that 4G and the other one 5G? Is that the difference between the two? Or is it?
I'm gonna let Mr. Druin
Okay.
Yeah.
explain that a little better now.
Yeah, thank you. Victor Draw and I spoke at the last meeting, so we're sworn in then. So the frequency, basically is what they transmit at, right? Whether it's a AM or FM radio station or public safety works at 800 and they have some 150, 3G, 4G, 5G, LTE, all these terminologies that wireless carriers use are not defined by the frequency. So there's two things. So you have the frequencies that are issued by the FCC that the wireless carriers or radio station or whoever goes out and acquires, buys. And then within that, you get the chipsets that are in the phone. So, you have a faster, the 5G is a faster chipset than the 4G or the LTE. It's about 20 times faster and it allows more capacity. What happens when you increase the speed on the devices is the cell site shrink a little bit. So, years ago, to provide adequate coverage, I think, going back 20 years, a cell site like a King Pine site with 1G, when you had an original phone, all you did was call. That was it. You didn't text, you didn't stream videos, you didn't do any of that stuff. that cell site would cover 7 or 8 miles, right? So now as technology's advanced and people need more advanced services, what's happened is in order to get enough quality of service and speed to that device, the cell sites have basically shrunk. Every time there's a new generational change. So, some of that is driven by frequency. So you saw, we submitted plots, again, at 700, which is what all the carriers would consider like a C-band, which is what they're laying over as their 5G right now. So we're anticipating that that's what it would be. It would be 700 megahertz, 700 and 800. So when we talk about health effects and things like that, 700 and 800 megahertz was what was used in 1G. So anyone that had a phone 20 years ago, all of a sudden the carrier said, hey, you got to turn in your phone, right? We're not going to provide service to that flip phone anymore, so you got to turn it in. So now you have to go to the next generation of 2G and 3G phones. Well, the FCC took those 700 and 800 megahertz spectrum back. They took it back and they gave them 1900, 2100, 2300, all these other frequencies. And ultimately, the FCC sold it back to the carriers, and now it's being deployed for 4G and 5G. So that's where you're so we're recycling the frequency. So the frequency is what has the emissions, right? The 5G is just the generation of the chipset that's in your device that you carry with you. So, and Musk is doing some pretty remarkable things to do that from that distance. To pull down that amount of data is impressive. But with the satellites at the height that they're at, the issue is you can provide emergency services. Like North Carolina, they were able to provide emergency services. People could make a call. They couldn't stream. They couldn't do what they needed to do. So as great as satellite is, it's not going to replace macro sites. So that's to your point, it is.
It's
What he's
meshing.
doing is really incredible. From somebody that does stuff like this. So.
Thank you. And I would like to make one other comment, because the question was raised about exposure, is that there are several levels of the way they measure it. They're actually measuring the exposure based on a gram of body tissue, but that amount of energy that's absorbed is dependent on the frequencies and other factors. And so that's why when they set the standard, it's actually set in something called milliwatts per square centimeter, and that is transferred through those. That table shows you the conversion factor so that you get the same amount of energy, so that, and then they go through all those calculations. There's multiple levels, you work down, and then finally you come up with, okay, how much do we have in comparison to what we're allowed? Okay. I really want to keep moving on. I'm hearing some things that are very similar to what's been said before, and as I said, I'd like to ask you not to do that, but if you have something new to say, I'd be happy to hear it. Did you want to in the back too? Go ahead. You go ahead. No, that's all right. Go ahead.
You're now sworn in last time. I just want to put it out there. The ZBA has a legal duty to explore alternative options for this. The ZBA must consider alternative sites and technologies, not just the one that GMR picked. So it's your legal duty to do that.
It's the town's legal duty to do that. The ZBA.
And telecommunications.
Right.
And their site is a horrible site. It's surrounded by mountains. Most of it services inhabited wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
And small cell technology on lift towers, other things, instead of a 150-foot tower, there are other alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of your obligation to search out these other things before giving them the opportunity to do this without searching for new technology or new options. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a moment. Did you have something to say again, or you just stretch? You're just stretching. Okay. Okay. And then we want to move on. Say it quickly, and then. No, go ahead.
I'm Mary Liddell. I was sworn in last time. Doug, I have a question for you. You brought up having a crash and not being able to call 911. I've lived here 22 years in complete peace, beautiful air, beautiful water, and I have a couple of questions. Now we're gonna put in a cell phone tower so everybody's got cell phone service. Eden doesn't even have a police station. So when you have a big crash, or someone goes into the lake, whether we have a disaster, what happens?
They call the state police. 911 goes to the state police.
That's right. We on 153, that live on 153, have not even seen a crash in 22 years. So now you're gonna put a cell phone tower in, people are distracted. This road is 153, that is a highway. We have logging trucks come down this road, we have bikers come on this road, we have people running on this road, and in all my years living here, we've never seen a crash. Now, if somebody had an emergency, there's enough houses from where this mileage goes to somebody knocking on a door or hearing it because it's quiet. We live in a community where people stay as a community, help each other as a community. This is not like a necessity, because we do have other options. The other point I want to make out is that once you put the monopole up, and now you have the Audubon Society across the street, now all of a sudden we have different owls coming and nesting in them. And I have a question for Mr. Springer. What happens when all of a sudden either this becomes obsolete, doesn't work, or we really don't need it? You can't touch that monopole with a nesting barrier. You can't touch it. Now it becomes a wildlife sanctuary. These are very important points that I'm trying to make, okay? Because I get the safety issue. But what I'm saying to you is, first of all, I'd like to call the state, change 153, and make it not a highway. And another one is that when people go down without their cell phones, they're driving and not looking at their cell phones, because there's no room for a crash. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Those of you that live on King Pine Road and other places, all of you have cell service, if I'm correct. I mean, you know, I'm just asking that, but I don't think anybody doesn't have cell service.
And I run a business.
Yeah, I'm just asking that as a point of.
actually have the cell service, have it there, or?
No, you have cell service at your house, either, you know,
No, we don't have we do not have cell service at our house.
you don't. Are you on King Pine Road?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
on the corner of King Pine Road and East Madison.
Okay. Just asking for
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Did you want to say,
Most of us don't actually have cell service
Yep.
like that.
did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm getting all confused now. Sorry. One of the things I just wanted to mention is, when we weren't talking about, how much your house is worth and all that stuff. Mr. Springer kept saying that, it doesn't, reduce your value of the house, because you can see a cell tower. Well, we were also talking about actual proximity, not to the cell tower, not just seeing the cell tower, which I sort of got jumped over when he was speaking. Many of us live within like 1,200 feet or, you know. Oh, I said within. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was actually quite surprised how it is. And that is one of the things, the perceived notion of being that close does make your house less desirable. It's not just that you can see a cell tower. That was one of the things.
Okay, thank you.
He also said that he didn't think, not he didn't know. So it was
Okay,
his opinion, it's not going to lower.
Drew, can she identify herself?
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Identify yourself for the television, would you?
Oh, I'm Leslie Pritchard.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
She was sworn in
we,
before.
Yes, she was sworn in last time.
I was sworn in before,
Yep.
yes. But you can see right now, the people who are upstairs worried about this. We do live very close to it. We own houses very close to it. And so to us, when people keep saying, the value of your house doesn't go down, well, to us, it does go down, because we do, that's what we perceive. So, I wouldn't necessarily just go and buy a house 600 feet from the cell tower. So it eliminates a bunch of people from actually purchasing properties.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd really like to wrap this up so we can get on, but go ahead.
Make this one really quick. To the home value point, it is really hard to find evidence of this. I had 4 realtors at my house before this whole thing, and all of them said it really is difficult to provide proof that this changes the property value. However, for this reason, we don't list and sell a house and then have a cell tower put up in visible or close proximity and then try to sell the house again in a very similar market. It's usually years later, or the comps, real estate works out all of these comps. It's very hard to find the same house with the same proximity, and so it's really hard to collect the data to prove that it reduces the value, although all of the realtors said it absolutely reduces your customer base, right? And it lowers the demand, and we know how demand lowers price.
Thank you. Okay, so what I'd like to do at this point, like I said, is ask the public to hold back. If you, well, we could close it, but then it means we can't ask for clarification, right? So if it becomes unruly or we keep getting interrupted, then we will close the public hearing. But I'd like to leave it open for the moment so that we can possibly interact. Okay, so I've begun to make some notes myself. And what I'd like to do is go through some points and ask the board to contribute to our findings of fact. I would like to start off by acknowledging that we have an umbrella in which we are working. This umbrella is the TCA of 1996, and it's a different context than the ZBA normally works in. I want to say it does not mean that we cannot apply our zoning ordinance. We can apply our zoning ordinance, but our zoning ordinance cannot be applied if it has the effect of prohibiting the use of the only feasible site, right? And the other thing it can't do is it can't be applied in a manner that restricts based on health considerations that are not consistent with the FCC guidelines. So that's the framework in which we can work. Inside that framework, we are allowed to apply our zoning ordinance. Okay, so that's just the thing, all right? So if we want to consider its findings of fact with respect to RF radiation safety, all right? GMR submitted a report on April 14th, that's this week, from C-Squared Systems that demonstrated the peak radiation emitted from the tower on all 4 providers' arrays, simultaneously broadcasting at full power is a maximum of 13.38%, right? And I've gone through that. I'd like to just, for the finding of fact, I wrote it down. It's just less than 14% of the maximum permissible exposure level allowed by the FCC for the general public. That's important, general public standard. And this occurs at approximately 850 feet from the tower in the direction of the strongest beams and drops off exponentially to less than 2% of the maximum permitted exposure at 2,500 feet from the tower and beyond. Okay, that's a fact. Confirmed by our independent consultant, IDK, Mr. Bagasic. I think I got it right that time. So 4th point, public was asked at the first meeting in February 19th if anyone had any evidence shows that the tower does not meet the FCC standards, and to date we haven't had any evidence submitted that would suggest that a tower does not meet the standard of the FCC. Last point is, though there's been a lot of data submitted supporting the need to review the FCC guidelines, it's beyond our authority and competence to assess that kind of information with respect to the health effects as it applies to R5 criteria. Does the board want to make anything else, other comments on the FCC guidelines? You agree with those findings so far?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so with considerations with respect to coverage, all right, I'm just going to review what's there, and board, please feel free to throw whatever else you want in there. We've gone over these reports before, so I'm just summarizing what we've already done. Coverage provided by the existing cell phone towers, that is, currently existing ones, exclude Route 153 in Madison and Eaton past Brownfield Road into Conway. And this lack of coverage has been verified by IDK, right? And that lack of coverage is the reason why the cell phone tower has been proposed. The proposed GMR tower would provide cell phone coverage along Route 53 from the Northern Freedom through Madison, approaching Brownfield Road. Now, actually, that's one thing which I think we probably ought to actually establish is if 153 is one particular focus of where cell phone coverage needs to be, then we need to review those maps and determine whether the GMR tower does as good a job as anything else. Maybe we should just go ahead and do that. Now, it would appear that, unfortunately, this is, well, I don't have my ruler with me, but at 1.5, that's 1.5 miles, just 1 second. What I'm just trying to do is come up as far as 153. If that's 1.5, that is 3/4, and that is 3/8 of a mile. So it would appear that the last little bit, maybe 1/4, 3/8 of a mile of 153 before Brownfield Road is not covered by the GMR tower.
Didn't someone mention 1.9 miles from King
Yes, he
Pine?
mentioned 1.9 miles from where?
King Pine.
From
the
King
tower.
Pine.
On
On
153.
153, yeah, so that's,
Oh, yeah. So what about it?
well, yeah, I mean, that's, well, the point is, we don't really need to consider the southern portion very much because it's all covered.
Well, it's not Madison either, it's Freedom.
No, that's not Madison anyway. The question is, does it go as far as, and it appears based on this map that we come just, excuse me, I get in the right place.
But that's not 150, that's not Madison either, that's Eaton.
Well, yeah. Well, but the question is, we're talking about putting the tower in Madison.
Yeah.
And so the coverage of the tower, the purpose of the tower is to cover
King Pine Road,
King Pine, well, not only King Pine, but,
East Madison Road.
well, no, I'm talking about State Route 153.
Oh,
If the part of the reason why that tower exists is to provide, if it doesn't cover that all the way out, say, to Brownfield Road, but this one does, then the question is whether or not, you know, and the level of coverage is listed here out to Brownfield Road and beyond as minus 95 decibels, which is an acceptable level. Whereas this map, we'll have to perhaps measure that more specifically to keep on the wrong intersection. This map shows a gap, and just before that gap is a level of minus 95 to 105. So the level that's there, but it's, don't laugh at this, it's a half a fingernail.
Well, you've got a scale sitting to the right.
I do, but I don't have a ruler with me. But we
Just use a
can,
piece of
we
paper.
can estimate that and write that down as part of our, that we
Just
need
use
to
a piece
to
of
fill that
paper,
out.
yeah.
But it's approximately for our, there's a 1/4 mile missing in round figures. Okay, so that's part of the question. Is we can just make note that the proposed GMR tower would provide cell phone coverage along Route 153 from Northern Freedom through Madison, almost to Brownfield Road in Eaton as verified, we don't want it through Madison to Brownfield, but short of Brownfield Road by, we can verify this later before you go approximately 1/4 mile.
Do we have someone with their hand up?
I'm sorry.
I know.
Okay, well, we can, I'm not gonna do that right now.
So
We-
I can kind of speak to what is covered and what isn't.
I'd actually like to keep this discussion with the board right now, because if you find an error,
Madison has coverage. The Milk Space Lodge is in Eaton, and past Milk Space Lodge does not have coverage. I work there. My
Yeah.
office is there.
right,
So
well,
this is only covering Eaton, not Madison.
okay. Well, we're talking about 2 cell phone towers that don't currently exist. These are calculated coverages. Okay, so I want to go on and with respect to coverage. Mr. Benson, who's a Madison resident, I believe, suggested a different property to offer similar coverage with less impact on the neighborhoods in the vicinity of King Pine, and proposed excuse me. Oh, yeah, you see, in the vicinity of King Pine in the proposed site, right? And Mr. Dow has submitted material that suggests that either existing structures can be used. Also, we have a letter from Kent Chamberlain, who, as I said, is a former chairman of the Department of Electrical Engineering, is deeply involved in radio frequency broadcasting studies and design, has sent us a letter, and I just quote from part of his question. It says, let's see. Dr. Kent Chamberlain from UNH, Professor Emeritus of Electrical Engineering, former chair of the department, has extensive experience in the design and assessment of RF towers and personal knowledge of King Pine area, as well as he's vacationed here quite often. Stated in a letter to the ZBA dated March 17th, 2025, that, quote, "The proposed tower does not make sense in terms of providing the desired coverage given the topography of the region." Now, that's an opinion, but it's an opinion of an expert in RF tower design. Secondly, a parallel application by Vertex Powers for a tower in Freedom would also provide cell phone coverage with adequate strength for this, as verified by IDK. We just mentioned that they go.
May I see that letter?
Yes, you may.
Obviously, I'm aware of its existence.
Okay, I'll have to dig it out, but yes, you may look at.
Just read it.
Oh, I know, I was just reading from my notes here. I'll show you the letter. Hang on a second. I wanted to ask, does the board have any other comments they want to add to the questions that are? And where I quoted from was right here on the back. This paragraph, that's the letter. Other comments respecting the coverage? Any
We
other
just need to clarify it really clearly, like on a map where it is.
Okay, so we need to clarify where the coverage.
I mean, more than appears to be already. I mean, I know there seems to be maps with clarity, but to me, we're lacking clarity about how many miles, exactly where it is. I mean, maybe I'm missing something here.
No, I don't think you're necessarily missing
feel
something. The
like
point
we're
was
not-
that it's worth knowing
Yeah.
if we are going to compare the proposal of the Vertex Tower to the proposal of the Green Mountain.
And the Vertex Tower may not happen, or it may happen. It's not in our jurisdiction.
No, I know, but, well, where we're going with this is that if we don't have a determination
Right.
that this is the only feasible.
Right.
Right, so what kinds of things do we have right now that show, so we have a proposal of a second property. We have expert opinion that there are possibly existing structures already that could be used. We have the expert opinion of the former chairman of the Department of Electrical Engineering at UNH that this particular location doesn't make sense for the desired coverage. And we also have the fact that from our town procedures, the planning board has not yet actually assessed or determined whether or not this is the only feasible location, which they're obligated to do.
Yes.
So at this point, our board does not have presented to it a clear picture that this is the only feasible location.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's not the only feasible location, then we would potentially have the right to deny a variance.
That's my point. We're just lacking clarity about exactly what it's giving
Right.
to us, just in pure mileage, if nothing else.
Right.
We've got a lot of other facts.
Right. Now, of course, we haven't made that determination yet, but
No.
we have, well, it just goes back to the point, we're in the framework of the TCA, but the TCA only requires that we cannot prohibit the only feasible location.
Right.
Right. Other comments regarding coverage? Okay. Regarding property values and aesthetics, as I mentioned, GMR has a certification from the FAA that the proposed tower without lights poses no impediment to aircraft navigation, so we're clear there.
Speak up a little bit, please.
Sure. I just said that GMR has a certification from the FAA that the proposed tower without lights has no impediment to aircraft navigation. The balloon test was performed on February 25th. And of course, there are varying opinions as to whether or not the balloon test was, how would you put it? Acceptable or not acceptable, but the bottom line is we do have a balloon test. We do have evidence one way or another as to where the visibility of the top of the tower at 150 and 130 and 170 feet is. We can assess that in our deliberation. And now we also have, as I pointed out, two major reports submitted by Mr. Springer. One of these reports was delivered by Andrew G. LeMay of the Real Estate Consultants of New England. And he makes a comment here. Assumptions and limiting conditions is written and subject to the following assumptions because the proper understanding of analysis and conclusions contained requires an awareness of these assumptions. Are asked kindly to carefully review the considerations. In any event, the bottom line is, he said they're looking for it, right?
The bottom line right there.
Yeah,
That's it.
right, their bottom lines are that it is my opinion that the existing tower has no measurable impact on surrounding residential values due to the proximity of or the ability to see the cell tower. That is the same conclusion, very similar format that was arrived at by Mr. Mark Correnti of the Fair Market Advisors, LLC.
Do you have all the data that I gave you last meeting?
I do. I haven't gotten there yet. I have not gotten there yet. Okay. in any event, the quality of data here, the scarcity of sales of local data is supplemented with sales from other communities. This particular one is from Londonderry. And I'm looking for, he's made a specific comment here, which I'm having a hard time finding at the moment, which is that they recognize that there's limited data associated with these particular studies. Now, we did have other data submitted, in particular, a study. No, I don't know. I went and got the study. I don't know if anybody else did. Did anybody else do the study that was referred to from the University of Southern Alabama? Okay. The University of Southern Alabama took a study. Hold on to your hats for a moment, buckle your seat belts. This was called a let's see, I'm looking for where I wrote it down here. Well, it's a sophisticated data study. They included all sales from 1999 through 2015, which is a period of 17 years, in the entire county of Mobile County. There's 23,000 plus sales. They split this out into spatial. They used almost 20 independent variables. Have you done any research? You know what I'm talking about? Okay, well, this is a hedonic spatial auto regression model, right? And what that means is a regression model simply traces the relationship between independent variables and a dependent variable. In this case, it's the price of the house as the dependent variable, right? And auto regression does that by taking out specific independent variables and tracing them over time. A spatial auto-regressive model focuses on the distance factor between, in this case, the house and a specific item. In this case, there are 350 towers that were being built in the time frame of this study. And so they've taken that, and hedonic means that they have assumed that the study is done based on looking at how each individual component affects the price. So what they do is it's a very complex study. I'm not going to go into the whole business. I couldn't do it anyway. But the result of the fact is, like I said, they consider things that may not seem to be relevant, like the number of African Americans versus whites purchasing homes and how that changes over the years. The median income of the location, the age of the property, when it was built, whether it was built before or after the cell tower, how close it is to the nearest cell tower, and so on and so forth. So they broke out 4 different zones based on the number of houses that were at a minimum distance to a cell tower. And then they asked the question of whether those cell towers were visible or not. And so they did this entire study. Like I said, so you're talking 23,000 plus sales with 20-some variables. We're talking well over 500,000 data points, taken over a period of 17 years. So this is a very high quality study in which he also did a series of comparisons and discussions of the literature and how bias, is introduced into the question why it's so hard to determine whether or not a cell tower affects prices. Anyway, the National Association of Realtors, as I mentioned, did publish this article, and the result of it was, in summary, that there are 4 groups of houses based on the sales, residential properties, based on the distance, minimum distance to the nearest cell tower, right? So in 3 of those groups, there was no noticeable difference in price based on their distance from the cell tower. However, in the 4th group, the drop in price over the 20-year period was traceable at 2.65%, and that distance is within 2,400 feet of the cell tower. And if the cell tower was also visible, then the price could drop as much as 9.7%. So it's a fairly good study. It also has another bias advantage, that is, it's done by an independent research company that has no financial interest. So I'm not impugning the character of the real estate agents that did this study, but from the perspective of a researcher, if someone has a financial interest in the outcome of the study, it is a means of questioning whether or not there is, an inherent bias, especially when they admit that the number of the amount of data that's considered is relatively small, and it's relatively short time frame. So we do have a study that shows there's a possibility that there is a reduction in the price. Does anybody else, did anybody else look at that study? Okay. It's also interesting to note that went to the map and I drew a circle from the tower. Most of the homes on Fox Road and almost all of the homes along King Pine Road are within the 2,400-foot radius that was suggested in this study. Now, I also want to say that 2,400 feet was not determined by where the price was dropped, but simply by the number of homes. That just took 25% of the homes, how far are the first 25% from, the next 25%. So those distances, you get, so the last group is something like 4,000 feet to 41 miles. And the first group is a very tight group, within 2,400 feet. And that's the only group where there was a noticeable difference. Okay. The other thing we have is that we do have a report that the decibel levels associated with the potential use of generators is probably not significant. At the distance of the fence, the enclosure, we're talking voice level. Now, we didn't have that verified, but that's information taken off the manufacturer's data, which reflects the sound covering, not just the weather cover, but the sound covering.
And I thought it was interesting, if you have 1 or 4, it isn't that much more, the sound.
No, that's true. Okay, does anybody have any other, so we've covered a number of findings of fact, right? Do you, I'll give Mr. Springer a chance. You listened to us as we went through here. I think it's fair to give you a chance. Are there any of those statements that we made that you want to rebut or contest or add to, or do you want to add a statement of fact that we've missed?
I guess what I would say is I've never seen the Attorney Bragg letter, which apparently Mr. Chamberlain referred to in his letter, which is dated February. So I can't respond to that. I plan to get a copy of that, and I will respond. I just saw the Chamberlain letter today. I disagree with his conclusions, but I'd like some chance to respond to that. I've never seen the Alabama study. I find it very, very, very difficult to believe that there's a diminution of property value when you cannot see the tower.
Did you what?
When you cannot see the tower. I find that very difficult to believe. So I'm gonna be looking at that. I haven't gone on that.
Okay, all right, well, hang
I
on.
reserve my right to comment on that, but.
That's fine. No, no,
Other than that-
I don't have, no, that's fine. It's easy enough, I can send you a copy of that study.
Or a link.
Yeah, or a link, whatever. The bottom line is that some of this stuff comes from me pouring through the reams of data that have been submitted to us, yeah, so, and there's no reason why you shouldn't see it. Right. Did you want us to add something? Stay who you are.
John McDonald, I was sworn in previously. I just want to comment that I've heard you can't see the tower multiple times. Currently, what would have to happen is a 60 by 60 or 80 by 80 area of 100-year-old plus pine trees that we all look at would be cut down and would be replaced by a 135-foot steel or concrete tower with a stockade fence around it. And there's a number of houses that look at the location. So it absolutely would be visible, and those trees would be gone. Thank you.
And any potential buyer is going to come and look at that.
Nope.
Make a decision based on that as well.
Well, I understand that. That's one reason why the one study made a distinction between visible and not visible. Nicole, were you sworn in before?
Yes.
Okay.
Nicole Norland, East Madison Road. I think, I mean, when it comes to valuation and seeing it or not seeing it, I mean, I think it's safe to say that if I was house shopping and I'm going with a realtor, I'm gonna say, I don't want a cell tower within 5 miles of my house. And, you know, maybe even, it sounds like everyone in this room, I wouldn't buy any of these people's houses, and I'm sure they're lovely people, and the Dows are excellent carpenters and have crafted beautiful homes, and I still wouldn't buy them because they're near a cell tower. And that's a fact. So it does, if you lower your demands, you lower your price.
Okay. Okay, so we need, a couple of things we need to do. Attorney Springer needs Attorney Berg's letter.
Which one? I have two.
Yeah, both of them. He needs a copy of the study that was brought to our attention from the University of Southern Alabama.
Or a link to it.
Or a link to it, but the point is you need access to it. Let's see, a copy of Ken Chamberlain's letter but that was attached to one of Attorney Berg's letters, okay? And we need to determine how many miles of coverage, well, shall we say, it's the differential coverage that we're interested in terms of, I mean, it's a true statement. We need to assess, when we do our evaluations, we need to assess them in light of the information that we have. But at this stage of the game, well, not at any stage of the game, this board is not in a position to make a determination as to whether or not we have the only feasible. That'll be your job later.
Only if you approve it.
Well, no, actually, let's discuss that just for a second, because if we approve the variance, right, you are still obligated to determine whether or not
Right.
there is another feasible, more feasible location, in which case it's remotely possible that you'll come back to us with a variance request for a different location, right? If we disapprove or deny the variance, right, then all that means is that, well, there's several scenarios, but probably the most likely one is that then you would go out and see if there's, now, let's just assume for the moment that you determine that in fact this is the only feasible one and we've already denied the variance. That's a material change in the conditions of the application, which means it can come back to us. And we would have to evaluate it in light of the TCA.
I'll be in Tahiti, okay?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I'm just saying that's a procedure, and then the public needs to understand, what could happen, because we have two boards in town, and both of them have to act, on this kind of a particular thing, right? So,
Does everyone here realize he's planning? That's the board, we're talking to him because he's here on the planning committee, yeah.
and by New Hampshire law, we are allowed to have a member of the planning board as an alternate on the zoning board of adjustment in order to facilitate communication between the groups. But on occasion, such as this one, where he's going to have to act on this case on the planning board, he has to be recused from voting, on this particular thing. So that's the point of procedure.
The realtor that provided that data that I gave you, his name, number, the realty office that he works for was on that. So if you don't have it, let me know. I'll get it to you. Because he supplied a lot more data than I believe what my wife provided to you. And he said he's available. He just couldn't make it.
Well,
I'm just saying he's.
I understand. There was the letter that we received, which actually, that all that data should be, all of that data, all of those studies that you mentioned will be in that letter.
Okay.
However, from a researcher's perspective, the study that makes a difference is the one that we talked about. So all the other ones have more bias incorporated in them. They may come to the same conclusion, but if the best study shows, you know what I mean, we don't have to have 15 studies, we just have to have one reliable one. Okay. Okay, so we're coming up to 8 o'clock. Is it fair to ask you if you have any advice for us in terms of procedure? I mean, you're not going to advise us on legal issues out clearly here, but.
Well, I think at this point, you need to be cognizant of 674-33, which requires the board to act within 90 days unless the applicant and the board can reach a mutual agreement on a continuance.
I believe we've already.
You did that for the last one, but I think you need to make sure that the applicant would agree to extend past tonight. He's only agreed to today.
Oh, he only agreed to today. Okay, but the 100, yeah, okay, the 150.
That's the federal shot clock.
Right, I know, but.
New Hampshire is 90 days, so he's extended it to April 16th, which is today, so we're now past, we would be past the 90 days under the state statute. So we need to agree, if the applicant's willing to agree, to the next ZBA date.
Okay. Do you want to agree to that? That is, the federal shot clock runs out after the May deadline, right? So we're, as far as the federal.
Correct.
We have May to continue.
At state, we have 90 days.
Right. All right. But so you didn't sign up for another 90 days, or at least to the 150?
It was till April 16th.
April 16th, okay. Are you? No, I'm not asking for a 90-day extension.
No, just
He
30
just said
more.
extension to April 16th, which was today.
Right,
So
we
we're
gave you
looking
So
the
now,
extension for this year.
so now, if you send
Question
me
is,
another one,
What's the date in May?
May 21st.
That means we're gonna have to make a decision on
Can I
that night.
speak to my client for 1 minute?
Sure.
Sure.
Sure. But I'm just trying to
If-
organize
If
the
we make it,
time.
if we let it go another 30 days, we're bound to make a decision that night.
Yeah, we're pretty much bound to decide.
Yeah.
We'll have 5 members, hopefully. Yeah. Well, the other thing is that he wanted a chance to see the letters
Mm-hmm.
and the studies.
Sure.
To see all the solutions.
Yeah, we need to do that anyway. I'm not here in June anyway, so. Sharon could handle it, but I don't think we want to.
And Mark's into 80.
Well, that
Oh, you're not here for me?
May I am.
Okay, yeah, let's just do. Sharon's and I won't be on the board anyway.
Jennifer, are you here in May?
Okay.
Thank you.
Got that one. Oh,
Sadly, I've got someone currently in hospice, so I can say yes, but if something goes awry, then that's going to kill it. But right now, so far.
Chair, you will agree to an extension to include the May 21st hearing?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because then what we would intend to do then, first of all, this gives you a chance to review those couple of letters, if you want to study those. And give you a chance to rebut them if you wish. Then we would move to close the public hearing and then act on the various variance requests. Now, we're still a few minutes before 8 o'clock. Is it appropriate if we discuss whether all 5 of the variances are appropriate? Or does it?
You can. I guess my suggestion would be, there's some material that Attorney Springer doesn't have yet, and he needs, and I also think it's important for him to understand that there are significantly more submissions than what has been referenced, so if he wants to review that material, but if you want to spend some time discussing whether, I think it would be a good starting point to determine what variances are required.
Right, and that's what I want to do. If we could spend a few minutes as a board deciding whether all 5 are required, and then,
But my concern is we have 4.
we have 4. 3 is, well, he agreed to a 4-member board tonight.
With the understanding that you were not making a voting decision.
Okay.
So if you're gonna be voting on whether variances are needed or not, we should confirm with the applicant that they are comfortable
Okay,
with.
well,
not-
what we can do is we can have the discussion and vote on it next time.
Yeah.
But the point is that we've done the groundwork.
Yes.
And it's done for the public, and then, and you'll know that there'll be very little public discussion next time. I mean, you're all welcome to come, but we're not going to have a large public hearing next where we have Attorney Springer a chance to respond, maybe have 1 or 2 comments, but we have got to move to the point of making decisions on this case next time, so. Okay, so with that, then let's go back to the original application and look at the 5 variances and determine whether, well, we won't determine that tonight. We'll do our groundwork and we'll vote when we have a 5-member board.
That's mine.
All right, just a moment. We disassembled all this stuff, so it's hard to.
It's hard to know what's what.
I want to know it.
Just a moment.
I left on my.
You would have quit? Is that what you're saying?
I might
Quit the job?
It had-
Here we go. Okay.
It had about.
Okay, so there are 5 variance requests, okay? I think the variance, the first one was a variance from Article 6, Section 6.5.A of the ordinance, which provides towers shall not exceed 10 feet over the average tree canopy height. I don't think, does anyone feel that, I think that's a given. We need to act on that one, right? I mean,
What do you mean act
Yeah.
on it?
the first one, but that
No.
there's no question about the fact we need to act on that.
We do need to act
Yes,
on it, yes.
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so the variance from Article 6, Section 6.5.E of the ordinance, which provides that there will be a fall zone equal to tower height from all property lines. Now, I did check, Eaton has exactly the same wording as our ordinance for the fall zone, so there would be no formal reason, at least, to ask them, unless, is that an issue in the law? I mean, if it's all the same owners. I mean, this is one we could consider the possibility of dispensing with because that's just the town line there and it's the same owner. Or is that, or do we hand this over to Eaton and say you have to act on it? What's the procedure here? Is that?
Be happy to talk to you in a non-public meeting.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. This is, all righty. Variance from article, the reality is we might consider dispensing with that one.
Which, number 2 or number 3?
Number 2 is we might.
The fall zone.
Yeah, because the fall zone,
Well, they've changed the height of the tower, so the fall zone has to be determined with that. I know they've technically made it shorter but it's a different fall zone to that.
Well, okay, but if they
250
don't
tag.
make it, okay, they've voluntarily done that, which would mean that even if they extended it, it's still shorter than it was.
Mhm.
That affects our side. Okay, we'll have to, we'll have to discuss it next week. Variance from Article 6, Section 6.6, number 3, which provides that all ground mounts shall be of a mast-type mount. The technical issue in that one, as it was explained, is if it's a mast-type mount, then the sending and receiving antennas have to be mounted vertically, which doubles the amount of space that's required on the antenna on the tower in order to do that. So they would actually have to have it either reduce the number of providers or extend the height.
Yeah.
Sounds like that ordinance needs to be revised.
Well, it does, but the reality is that there is a difference between, we had raised the question as to whether a mast was the same as a monopole, and the answer is not.
No.
Okay, so then we have to address that one in all likelihood. To the extent necessary, this is number 4, to the extent necessary, a variance from Article 6, Section 6.6K of the ordinance which provides that a telecommunication facility shall not be visible above the ridge line from the public roads. That's one that has been contested, so to speak, so
Yeah.
we will need to address that question. 5, to the extent necessary, a variance from Article 6, Section 6.6M of the ordinance which provides that any antenna array placed upon a proposed ground mount shall have a diameter of no more than 4 feet, exclusive of the diameter of the mount. My dilemma with that one is nobody knows what that means.
Well, yeah, but if you were to take, the word array means several of
Right,
something,
yes.
okay? So these individual pieces exceed 4 feet, and there's going to be several of them in a radius. There's the mast, and then there's a radius, a radial array.
Yeah, well, if you're
And
looking
that's
at
going to
it,
be more than 4 feet, because, they couldn't possibly get any on if they were 4 feet. I know it's triangular on plan, but there's nothing on the drawings that give that dimension.
well, oh, yeah.
I looked
actually,
through
we
the
have a-
drawings, and there isn't a written dimension. I can scale it.
Yes,
Please
you
do.
may.
Please. I would love that clarity.
The mount,
Yeah.
as I understand it, includes not just the tower, but the array upon which the antennas are placed.
Yeah.
So if you take the mount out, you're talking about the antennas only.
Yeah, and these antennas are not,
Right.
they're not your
No,
dish antennas,
Right.
they're your,
Right,
and they're somewhere between 4 and 5 feet,
right.
and what, 12 or 18 inches wide, I don't know, something like that.
But that's an individual panel, not the array, which is a series of panels. Array is multiple, yeah.
Right, I understand. Well,
So
then-
the array should not exceed 4 feet, is how I read it.
Well, I think that was originally written for,
I agree.
for circular antennas.
I understand that, but the point is, it may have originally been written for that, but we're
Well, okay, so
applying
the
it to
point
that,
is
so we
that
need
if
to
we,
discuss it more.
if we can't really agree on it, then we'll have to agree to consider whether or not.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
We have to talk about it more. Yeah.
Alrighty, so the only one that may fall out of consideration would be the one regarding the fall zone. And that will
Yeah.
probably hang entirely on legal definition as to whether or not it's the owner's property or the town line. Okay, so we'll address that later. But, okay, so the bottom line is then we will provisionally address all 5 as requested, even if it turns out that they aren't technically required. It's better to have them on record as, whatever we do with them, so,
Just a quick comment.
yes.
According to the internet, mast and monopole are the same thing.
I'm sorry?
According to the internet, masts and monopoles are the same thing.
Yeah, well, that might be the
I
case,
understand.
but,
Okay, that's not my understanding.
but his point was he was drawing a distinction
Yeah.
between one that requires a vertical
Right.
Right, no, I understand.
as opposed to a
Yeah,
horizontal
that's it.
display, so,
I would also know, I think your ordinance defines mast differently than monopole.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think it does.
We'll look at it.
I haven't looked at that since I drafted the project narrative, but.
It does, I believe it does, actually, Mr. Springer, yeah.
yeah, okay. So there's no obvious one of these to throw out. which is what I wanted to explore a bit with the board. Okay, so if that's the case, then what I'd like to suggest is that it is 8 o'clock, that we like a motion to continue this case till,
So moved.
well, just a second, we haven't stated the motion yet.
Can I ask one last question?
No.
Yeah, you can ask a last question. What would you like to ask? I reserve the right not to answer it, but you can
I
ask.
guess I'm just curious, because we came here
Yeah.
for the first meeting, and we were talking about this, and I just wanted to ask Mr. Springer, why he came in with this proposition tonight?
I'm sorry.
135.
Well, he can answer, but to quote him, he said it's a good faith attempt to reduce the visibility of the mast because there were a number of objections to it being visible above the ridge line.
Yep.
So it was above the trees, right?
yeah.
But but it also,
Okay, and then,
yeah.
I stand on what I said.
Yeah.
okay, that's fine, but did anybody mention the trees?
Has,
That's what they were doing over a week ago.
So I wanted to know
So-
what the actual tree height was that they actually came up with.
well, we're going to have that data in order to make the decision on that
I
variance.
think that was really.
Too late.
All right, so if you've measured the trees, then why don't you just tell us how high above them? You've asked for, well, hold on a second. You need to address me.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. If you've measured the trees, could you provide us that data?
I'm not aware that we have physically measured the trees, but I will check on that.
Yeah, if they have.
I would also know, we submitted photographs to the blue stuff,
Right.
which I think is the relevant piece of information.
Well, the main point is that we recognize that
Yep.
the
We moved to close.
proposed tower with the balloon has shown that it's going to be more than 10 feet above the visible canopy, which meets the criteria for needing a variance.
Not at 135 feet.
Well,
Right.
but, well, if you can bring data next week that shows that you measured it according to the standard by which it's to be measured, and that 135 feet, meets the criteria of not being 10 feet over, then you're right, then we can dispense with that requirement. Yes. We haven't moved, okay, so I'm asking for a motion to continue this case to 6 o'clock on May 21st, is it? May 21st. Can we do this in the gym again, or? Sure, all righty. Here at 6 o'clock on May 21st. You have a second?
Second.
Doug seconds. All in favor? Jennifer?
Aye.
Okay, all righty, Doug?
Yep.
Yep, okay, so we continue this case till May 21st, at which point we will move toward deciding on these. Okay, thank you.
And Attorney Springer, you'll send me till May 21st, please. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so we will take a very short break to allow a little bit of confusion for a couple of minutes, and then we will continue with case, I think it's 2501.
Mr. Springer, can I ask you just one minor question?
Yeah.
Are you going to put
It's
a
triangular.
lightning rod on top of that tower?
It's a triangle plan.
There will be a lightning rod. Okay.
It currently is.
It'll be grounded.
Does that extend the height of the tower?
Yes, it does.
Any forester
4 feet, 5 feet?
Yeah.
But it's also, what,
Yeah.
that
Any
can tell you
forest.
how trees, how tall
Yeah.
trees.
Yes, like basically
Yep.
triangulate it.
Where
like
this
that
tower
plan.
is,
Oh, they have a
or where I
Yeah.
think it is,
They do the
is
thing.
15
Where the-
feet below the ridge.
Yeah.
And basically
So,
what I
but the
want to know
question
is
is
that, is the
visible
arrays are like this. I
above
want
the
that
ridge.
in
The base, the base is
Equilateral
15 feet
triangle,
below the
that's the
ridge,
mast.
not the peak of it.
And these things are all mounted
Oh,
off
I
it
agree.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But I'm talking, you know, the ridge,
Yeah,
and on
each
the
of these
ridge, you've
things.
got trees.
yeah.
That's my
Okay.
point.
But that's an interesting thing, too.
Well,
So
yeah,
I'm
the
just
meaning of
saying
it is
that
that if you're
dimension,
on the
yeah.
road, for example,
Even the
153,
drawing doesn't
Right,
scale.
looking at the tower.
Yeah.
I can draw drawings. I
The
can.
the canopy, the ridge line,
Freezing.
which is the
It
front
is
part.
cool
is
because-
visible point.
Well, you know,
Okay.
they have to shut the heat off because the fans interfere with the sound.
It's just my feet.
Oh, is that why we're freezing?
Yeah, yeah, they have to shut.
Yeah, I don't know about the length. Next time I'm wearing thicker socks. I actually decided it was spring and like socks.
Have
Big
you been
was
up
there.
there?
Yeah, well,
No.
I'm wearing, I
Oh,
did,
yeah.
I took the
I'm
film.
trying to find the exact
Yeah.
location.
Oh,
kinda
well,
went
you know,
in
on the day of the
this,
balloon
yeah.
test, it was relatively easy. because
Oh,
they-
okay, so you
I
saw
was
where
there,
they did,
yeah.
okay, that's that. Because I took a person who is good friends.
Thank you.
uh,
He hates me.
That lives on King Pine. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll show you where it is. Well, he didn't show me anything.
God, it's cold.
Because he wasn't quite sure. So,
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
but nonetheless, I
Still like
I have a ballpark.
hedonic spatial.
I know. That is something, isn't it? That is something.
So Sharon is,
She's with grandkids, yeah. Or the first grandkid or something like that.
Well, what's I'll probably not even be on the board next time.
Well, that's
Sharon will
part
be
of the-
back.
yeah,
so,
that's
you know.
part of my.
Well, no, you probably will be because,
I mean, I will be, but, you know.
but Sharon will be back and we'll be 5 people with you because right now, okay, so
Because Bill
what do you call it?
resigned and Jake got something,
Jake and Bill, have
other things.
did not re-up, so to speak, for their term.
Right.
What happened to Bill?
yeah, I didn't know that either.
Bill, okay, we can say it in administrative section, yeah. Bill, in short, he's come up with medical issue.
Okay.
And
So,
he said he's just gonna have to pay attention to it for the moment. And,
fair enough.
And he won't have the
He can't
energy or the
commit.
time
Hey.
to deal with it.
It happens.
He said it happened very suddenly and,
I'm sorry to hear that.
yeah, he didn't want to go into any detail on it.
And nor should he have to, yeah.
But, so I'm not sure what it is, but, just.
Well, I wish him well. I hope,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, he had a good grasp of this.
prove it. Get a letter from your mother.
What are those guys doing here?
Linda,
I know, what are those guys doing here? Talking about STRs?
Linda, is this date
Hey,
night?
Drew, there's that, the application,
STR?
well, not this, not the tower, moving on.
Yeah.
The one that came in
Oh,
for
my God.
the,
What are you
I
doing
can
here?
take this off now, I don't like it with 1,000 people in here. The application for the building from Peter Dow for King Pine, you know, this, the one we've got in here. That-
Did you
why
tell
didn't
him
even
what a great
accept it?
job I
The
did?
drawings are in, I mean, we shouldn't even be looking at it, it's terrible.
Well, we can determine tonight not to.
It's
No,
done,
that's fine.
just like that.
We will have to look at whether or not we will accept it without a.
Well, it needs a proper site plan, but also the drawings are just rubbish. I mean, they're just scribbles, they're not clear. Trust me, I drew drawings all my life, that's what I did.
I understand.
I mean, I can wing sketches, I understand it, but
The requirement is a certified plot plan.
that's not on there.
But, yeah, we can decide to grant a waiver or not.
What are we talking about?
Or we're just talking about the next
I'm
case.
on
The next case, yeah.
Conservation Commission
But I just looked at the
too.
drawing and I just thought, I don't know why we even accepted
Conservation
it, because
Commission is
they're just not legible.
Over,
I drive
you're
past the
talking
building. I drive past it every day.
King Pine on
Yeah,
East Madison.
I
Road.
live,
I went down there and
Yeah.
the guy took me through it.
Yeah, I don't care, but unless
We do
someone takes you through
STRs
it,
and I can't
you
do
can't
STRs
understand what these drawings
Well,
are.
they're adding on it.
So this is all.
Well, yeah,
An actual garage.
Anyway, I know we
Well,
discussed it
yeah,
formally, but
I mean, driving by it all the time. I
I'm
can
the,
imagine
I
what it is.
understand the chair, but I'm not.
Now I got
the
your phone number. I just saw
purely from the perspective of the submittal, forget what they want to do to the building.
No, I understand.
You know, it's just a terrible set of information.
Well,
I made
we'll discuss it after.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
clear, it lacks clarity, okay? That's
Who's
all.
here to show Who is this?
Him. It's here. All right, we need to keep moving here. Oh, God. I am
know.
freezing.
That's why I didn't put on my coat again.
I know, I just put mine
Yeah.
on too. I got cramps.
Some of
as
it's
well.
pretty dull.
It's getting so cold, my legs are cramping.
After the meeting,
Cramping up.
you and I are gonna talk, okay?
Are our friends from the SDRs not here?
Because they're just
We're just making a decision on a
on
rehearing.
rehearings, so they don't
Oh.
need to be.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for other stuff. Do you need something? Ruby?
No, I'm just getting my stuff out.
Okay.
So, by the way,
Yeah.
these minutes end up looking pretty good.
Well, I have Attorney Sullivan,
Okay.
but it should have been Attorney Springer.
Yeah, I was over
so
there. It's
I'll
funny
contact
because
them. I have one
the
change here.
address.
I had Attorney Sullivan when I had
It's on
Attorney
the
Springer. It
big-
should be Attorney
the
Springer.
big
So
bill.
I'll
Oh, okay,
tell you
but
when
I mean-
with
And
it.
then to the
I
left,
did.
I said, "Is
I
this where
worked
they're
very
gonna
hard on those
add
minutes.
this thing on?"
Oh,
No, he took me
Then I
down.
couldn't move my wrist for the
Yeah.
next day at all.
Oh.
Showed me. He said, I can't show you where the shower, what a facility or
If
what.
you need anything, I've got the whole
Yeah.
case file here, so you can have my file.
Was it, yeah.
For
Was it-
25?
2501.
Yeah.
If you need my file, you can have it.
Okay,
It's
what I
easier.
need to do right now is pull out my,
Oh, I have those too, if you need those documents.
Okay,
well, I'm looking for my
yeah.
List of-
And you're
blank
gonna close
sheet
the other
meeting
garage
thing.
Hold on,
door.
hold on. I brought everything
Okay.
because I had a feeling you might need stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm,
Checklist.
yeah, yeah, if you could
those?
just give me a
Yep,
checklist.
I
Yeah,
got that.
I have one here.
Very good.
Okay,
Just
yeah.
take it. And then do you need this one too? This
Yeah.
is your, and then I have this meeting procedure.
Oh, here it is, okay.
So
Well,
are you
just
gonna
take that.
enter on the
Alrighty.
And I don't
side?
need anything else.
No, I don't, this one's a blank and it doesn't need to be, okay. I don't think so, but I mean, I might, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
Yeah.
Down the
Good.
street.
Okay, so.
No.
You're
No,
Peter.
and it was definitely, that whole building was done long before
Okay, so
variances.
let's come back to order. All righty. Okay, so this is case 2501. It's a request submitted by Peter Dow, I believe, for, yeah, for a garage. Okay, so Kate, would you go ahead and read the,
Okay. Case 2501, variance from Peter Dow, agent for Purity Spring Resort, 2119 East Madison Road, tax map 249, lot 1, to request a variance to allow an addition of showers and stairs with less than 75 feet from the center of East Madison Road, which is in violation of 1.3B1 in Article 5, Section 5.9A. My certifieds went out on March 10th, and everything is good there. It was posted in the Conway Daily Sun on March 13th, and the Madison Silver Lake Post Office on March 12th.
okay, and we got, and nothing came back and nothing,
No, good.
nothing missing or, okay, all righty. So, all right, so the public notices are in order. There's no reason we can't proceed. And just for the record, thank you for your patience in allowing us to delay, continue for, poll the board now. Oh, we only have, we do have 5 members, yes.
Now we
Yeah,
do.
Mark's back.
Bring him up.
Yep.
Yes, I'm going to elevate you to voting member for this, okay? Yes, so we have 5 members. Unless somebody has a conflict of interest, so let's poll the board. You have a conflict of interest? I do not. Do you?
No,
No? Do you have any? Okay, so there's no conflict of interest. We have a 5-member board. Okay. Okay, so now we have a question of waiver requests. Okay. We don't have a certified plot plan, right? Oh. No, we just have, well, yeah, but it's also, oh, they do have one. Well, okay, well, that's interesting. Well, hang on a second, let's see. You might be able to piggyback on that, but maybe not. The reason why I say
I
maybe.
didn't see one in here.
Well, no, they don't, he didn't submit
Okay.
one, but I was just looking to see, he said he's in the same lot as the Exhibit 1 of the GMR Tower, which you might look out.
This doesn't help.
Well, the question is whether or not your building
I know what it is.
is shown here.
You're knowing the building. Yeah, I know. A little bit. And that doesn't help.
I don't think, just a minute.
No, we don't have one.
No.
I don't have one.
No,
GMR.
they don't have the entire lot, they only have the building site.
Yeah, they're on, yeah.
So it's this red building.
Did we get that?
Yeah.
That's the building.
Yeah.
The plot plan or
We don't
whatever?
have,
Yeah, it's all
it's
says
in
the
your, it's
parking
in the very
lot for the
beginning of the
tennis court.
application.
Yes,
Well,
yep.
this one here.
GMR.
That's what I
You're
thought.
talking about
But
for
it's
GMR.
not, it has
Okay.
nothing to do with.
We're just
this.
wondering whether,
But unfortunately, it's
whether
going to be more
GMR
clear as to what
happened
we're
to
doing here,
capture his
in my opinion.
thing. Okay, so we have to discuss whether or not we can work without a certified plot plan. Or at least an engineer's drawing.
Yeah, my feeling is that, I mean, I'm pretty
Jennifer,
familiar with the building.
Do you mind,
Sorry.
can you take that thing off? Is that, are we,
Do you want this off?
no.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I know, there's a lot of people in the room, and I'm around someone who's sick quite a bit at the moment, so. I think we need something a little clearer than what we have to identify what's going on. I mean, I know the building, I've walked around it, and I kind of get it, but I think it's a little hard to identify what's going on here, where the doors are going, where the traffic flow is, just how it's going to work.
Well, the traffic flows on the road.
Yeah, but I meant coming into the garage, et cetera, that you're talking about.
So if you're looking at the garage door that's on the road.
Yeah.
It's now gonna be on the driveway side.
Right.
So you'll enter from that
Yeah,
parking lot.
I understand that, Peter, but these drawings don't really illustrate that, that's all.
Yeah,
You know, for me, anyway, that's all.
Let me step perhaps a little out of line. Have you seen the drawing?
I saw the drawing and I couldn't really understand.
Mhm.
It didn't illustrate. I didn't understand what they're trying to do as far as
here it is.
building.
Can you give me this?
Who's this?
I got it.
Who's that?
It's Josh Ackerty's, the
Okay,
I know that part.
okay, I'll tell you what, we haven't decided to accept a waiver request, but why don't, why don't I just take a moment and, we're gonna, and come back to the waiver request for a second, answer the question of regional impact and let you explain the plot plan and let Josh look at it too, so we can determine whether it makes any sense, because sometimes we can work without a certified plot plan, but sometimes we can't, all right? So we'll decide that in a moment. But does anybody think this has a regional impact?
No.
No.
Regional impact? No, okay. No regional impact. We are coming back to the question of a waiver request. Okay, Peter, why don't you explain what it is you want to do, and let's make sure that Josh is able to see what it is that you're talking about.
Microphone.
Microphone, yeah. Do you have a copy of the, well, that's fine. Yeah, here, come up here and then.
I'm reading yours.
Okay, now, for the record, East Madison Road is not a state highway, so we don't need any information. That is, there's no permits, as I understand, required from the Department of Transportation from New Hampshire, right? So this is entirely a town issue as far as, does anybody disagree with that?
Nope.
No, okay. Okay, Josh, or Peter, yeah. I need you to stand in front of the mic. Josh, if you need to listen, you can stand next to him.
So,
Okay, hold on a second. Let me swear you guys in, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so could you, both of you, raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you give pertaining to this case will be truthful under penalty of perjury? Okay, go ahead. Okay, Peter, next to the microphone, state your name.
Peter Dow.
Okay,
You can see the existing building I have here, which is existing. This little existing thing is that garage that's existing, with this being, East Madison Road. This is the garage door that's existing. I'm taking this out, extending it straight out, and putting the garage door on the parking lot side.
Okay.
And
This is gonna be gone?
yes,
Gone?
yep, and we're just gonna bring it straight, it's just basically a storage area, it's not even a garage, it's just for storage. And then the big thing of this whole thing is the fire escape. It's actually pretty far this way, but, that's really the main focus of this thing, is the fire escape, because they really wanted us to have an access for the septic.
So as far as the highway, now that he's saying that, as far as the highway department is concerned, that would be way better. It's not gonna, either the door coming over there's nothing to be coming out on the road as far as snow removal or any of that stuff. It's gonna really help us. I understand this, but that's still not conforming, but that's not my issue. But as far as the public's, taking care of the road, it would help us.
okay. Okay, so we need to come back to the, see.
Nope, that's me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We need to come back to the question of the waiver request. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but if your statement is that, from the perspective of the town, you don't object to an extension of that building at the same distance from the road, is the edge of the road clear enough
It
that?
doesn't seem like there's a, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean this, it's not really an extension of, you're actually gonna be removing some of the building.
Removing the existing garage.
Yeah.
And then extending it out.
Well, when you say removing the existing garage, you're removing the garage door and changing the use of the structure, but the structure is staying. Or,
No, the structure, the main building is staying, the structure that the garage door is on now.
Yeah.
Is being removed.
Oh,
It's being extended out. Basically, it's just extending the garage a little bit wider and putting the garage door on the outside.
oh, I see what you mean, so
Increase
Is that the
footprint.
second building to the left of the main building that we're talking about?
Right across from the tennis courts.
Yeah. Well, you've got two buildings there.
That's the existing?
That's a,
Yeah. The
that's
small
a
existing one is the garage.
okay, we're talking about the garage.
Yeah.
Yep,
And it's
Yeah.
just gonna be a storage room. It's not even-
okay, and you're just extending that, and you're gonna come in from the side?
Yes.
Yeah,
Extending
which,
that, and then, like I said, the main focus is the fire.
the fire escape.
okay, so we need to, what do we do about the waiver request? Now, I don't know, did you check the box for a waiver request? You have to check the box. We have to check the box for you if you haven't. Kate, was that?
What?
Waiver request, was that requested? Because there's no,
No, he did not sign it, no. Well, he asked for it right here. If you read it on page 13. Right here, Drew.
yeah, I got it, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask the board. Can we work meaningfully without at least an engineer's drawing?
For the purpose of the zoning, I would say so. Building regulations is going to be a whole different story, but that's not ours.
Building regulations isn't our issue.
No, that's what I'm saying, it's
And
not
Bob can handle
Yeah,
being
that's-
drawn on a
yeah.
napkin, so the
But I think, yeah, as long as everyone, I mean, I'm having a little difficulty understanding the drawings, but I mean, I'll get over that. That's nothing to do with anything. But the description seems,
Mark, let me ask
Right.
you, I mean, you
Yeah.
deal with these things from a much more formal perspective. I mean, you-
Planning board would send you away. You know, the balance is, you know, a certified plot plan would probably cost $10,000 for a $18,000 project.
right.
And so how do you balance those two things for the applicant?
A
Yeah.
measured drawing, I think.
So, yeah, and this drawing's pretty terrible, so.
Well, okay. So I guess part of my concern too is that we're not just concerned about the upgrade of the garage and adding a fire extinguisher. We're also, or fire escape, not extinguisher. There's probably one of those too, but we're also talking about town records. So we don't necessarily have to go to the extent of having a formal surveyor do
No.
a certified plot plan. But we have to have something that somebody else without any explanation could say, oh, yeah, I see what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So I think,
Even if it's on a tax map for a locus kind of idea.
right, yeah, so that the existing thing is shown clearly and what's being removed is shown clearly and what the final, okay, I think, are we kind of going in the same direction here? Okay. So apart from the question of the variance, we have to have something for the record that is going to show what was done. Okay? Do you have to pay a surveyor to do that? No, so I guess what we could do here is move to accept the waiver request on the condition that legible drawings
As existing and proposed.
as
drawings.
existing and proposed are submitted.
Scale drawings,
Right,
yeah.
right. And,
Should we have pictures to include?
I can include pictures.
yeah, you
Pictures
could,
are
yeah, you
fine.
could throw,
'Cause that-
because I'm concerned about the town record. You know, because if somebody comes back later and says, I object to this, inside the 30 days, I want to appeal this, we got to be able to show them what was done, right?
I also think it's not just plans, you need some form of elevation as well to show the height relationships of where the roofs come together, because that building has a lot of roofs.
Well,
so-
that's helpful, but of course.
Not for
understand-
us, that's going for them, sorry. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say,
overstepping- I'm overstepping ZBA there. I've gone over there. Yeah, I went
Right,
past
the-
our
the-
point
the
there,
Z-
sorry.
Yeah, the ZBA is concerned
My
specifically
apologies.
about the 15-foot
Yeah,
extension of this non-conforming use, you know, into that space.
yeah, my apologies for
No, no,
striking
I-
off into
no.
another,
Well, but
another discipline there.
that, yes, that's true, but it does relate to the question of us wanting a record to show what's going on. I mean, you know, so no, you don't have to pay an engineer $10,000 to do this. Okay. So can we move to accept the waiver request on the condition that legible plot plans are submitted?
As existing and proposed. As
Yes.
existing and
As
proposed.
existing and proposed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And you need a second?
Second?
Doug seconds? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we accept the waiver with that condition.
Good. The drawings.
I can get that to you.
Right, okay, so now,
I could do.
I know you've done this, but why don't you just formally tell us exactly what it is you're trying to do, and we will proceed
Right
with.
now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, stand up in front of the microphone.
We're just tearing down an existing garage, small existing garage, extending it out, moving the garage door off the street and putting it onto the driveway side. And in addition to taking a window out, building a set of stairs down that's covered for a fire escape. Because that's rental rooms up there, and they require to have a fire escape, so.
Right.
That's really the big thing, but having the extra storage was just, and getting kids off the street. They're concerned with kids, it's a, Camp Togo, so.
Right, yeah.
All the kids go in there all the time.
Mhm.
It's amazing somebody has been hit, but the idea was to get it off the side.
And the existing garage is actually attached to the building right now? is it?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're gonna remove that attachment?
So you're gonna put showers in there as well?
No, the showers are already existing.
Oh.
And I'm just, really, all we wanted to do is, because you're coming out of fire escape, you can look right down into the showers. So the idea was to cover the showers so that you couldn't see into the showers. It was kind of misled in the, my application with
Okay.
They're
Okay.
already existing, and I'm just trying to cover them so it's a little bit more private.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
why the pictures might help
And yes,
in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but the essence of this variance request is simply for the extension of that 15-foot non-conforming distance to the road.
Yes.
Now, that 15 feet, is that to the edge of the road or to the center of the road?
to the center of the road.
So you're really talking like a yard off the road.
But as the addition goes out, up the road actually, it gets
Begins.
further away.
Okay.
Not a lot, I mean, we're not.
Now they put it too.
Yeah, right, but it's not getting closer, it's
It's
getting
not getting
further.
closer.
So it's not getting more non-conforming, it's getting
Less
less non-conforming, but of course it is an extension of exist. Okay, so does that cause you any problem?
Exactly what, yeah.
Do you have any problems with that?
No, I just want to make sure it's not, it's less, not.
No.
No.
You can,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even consider it when getting close.
Okay, so then what we can do is, let's list, you can sit down. List the findings of fact here, and then proceed with our deliberation, unless there's any other comment from... Okay, so one finding of fact is it's an existing structure
That will be
with, well, excuse me, with a garage door.
That will be removed.
Yes, but we want to specify the garage door a little bit more. With a garage door that is
Facing the road.
effectively 3 feet off East Madison Road. When was the building built? Like 100 years ago or something, right? I can't remember what it says on the tax card, but it's, anyway, well,
And 50, and 40, and 30, yeah, a bit of everything. Yeah.
all right.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The existing structure predates the zoning ordinance of 1987 and is a pre-existing non-conforming use, non-conforming structure. All right. 3, the garage door, well, is, I'm going to say the garage door is being removed from the road side to the driveway side. For the garage is being expanded. Along East Madison Road. And will be less non-conforming by a foot or so. But still on the order of 15 or 16 feet from the center of the road. Any other findings of fact we need to put in there? I mean, the stairway and fire escape is interesting to Bob, but it's irrelevant for the variance, yeah. Any other comments?
That's good.
No, I'm good.
Okay. I just poll the board. Does anybody have reasons to deny the variance?
No.
No.
Well, then, do we want to make a motion to, I beg your pardon?
Close the public hearing.
Oh, we didn't close the public hearing.
Never opened it.
Oh, well, yeah, we did. We
Yeah, I read
opened.
the case.
Yeah, we read the case and opened it. Okay, so,
We need to close.
okay, let's move to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so, all righty, so, public hearing is now closed, which simply means we talk among ourselves and mumble. Okay. So, our straw poll was we don't have any reasons to oppose, so we wanted to move to grant the variance because, well, we didn't really evaluate according to all 5 criteria. Let's do that. Okay, so one and 2, it's not going to change, no change to the neighborhood. However, it will significantly improve the safety associated with using the garage door. Where substantial justice is done, well, let's see, unique characteristic of the property is that it's so close to the property, is that the existing structure is only 15 feet from the center of the road. Okay, substantial justice is done because it
Improves the entrance.
minimizes cost to the applicant while significantly improving safety and, what was your word, George?
Entrance.
And safety and
Access.
ease
Of access.
ease of access, and ease of access,
Access and ease of
and reduces risk to drivers. Will have no effect on property values. And 5, hardship. What do we say about hardship? Yeah, due to the
Any hardships? Looking at this drawing.
the unique position how do we want to say that? The expense of making the entire structure conforming
It's
is not,
prohibitive.
what's that?
Would be prohibitive.
Yeah, is prohibitive and not conducive. Well, it's prohibitive and good enough. Okay, so, move to grant the variance because
That's, yeah.
The only one there is.
it significantly improves the safety
All right, I got it, yeah. we
for
did.
drivers and campers.
We had one, but,
Does that sound good?
yeah.
Okay, so we move to grant the variance because it significantly improves safety for both drivers and campers.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Any other discussion?
No.
Did somebody second it?
Sure.
Doug
Doug
Doug,
did
yeah.
it, Doug made it, and George seconded it.
Okay, fine. Good, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah, okay, all right, it's unanimous. Okay, so, yes, grant the variance. One thing we didn't say, we should repeat in the, if we can amend that to include
The motion?
on the condition that he submits the new drawings.
Yeah, the
We-
existing
We
and
put that in
proposed
with the
drawings,
waiver,
yeah.
but we might as well just attach it to the
Yeah,
variance,
probably should.
okay?
Good.
Any objections to amending the motion?
No, None.
it's fine.
Okay, all righty. Okay, so if one wishes to appeal, one must act within 30 days of the date on this notice, day one being tomorrow. The necessary first step before any appeal may be taken to a higher court is to apply to the Board of Adjustment for a rehearing. The motion for rehearing must set forth all grounds on which one will base the appeal. Board members are advised to refrain from any discussion of the appeal with the board members and all parties to the appeal until all further appeal periods have expired. Thank you. Okay, so now, you're welcome to stay. We need to address, what's that?
Well, we all.
Yeah, I want to go home too.
Come on, Linda.
Aren't you having fun?
All right,
Good night.
good night.
Okay, so there's a couple of items, administrative items to take care of.
No,
No?
you're not done. You
Oh, no,
gotta do the
you're right.
rehearing.
Yeah, we've got to address the rehearing issues.
We gotta do the rehearings.
Yep, that's what I was,
Nope, it's okay, I'll keep you on track.
no, that's fine, absolutely.
That's my job.
Okay, so the question here on these rehearings is this. It's clear that they wish to take these to court in order to challenge our ability or authority
Days.
to limit the days of a non-conforming use, right? In these particular cases, we did not give a very clear explanation as to why that was the case. And it's also very likely that one of these in particular was also going to emphasize his fundamental constitutional challenge to the zoning ordinance itself.
That's his right.
It's his right, yes, absolutely. However, we did not, spend a lot of time, we made very summary arguments on those counts, right? And so the reason why we would rehear is not because of his request and his foundation, but the reason, in this case, the zoning board of adjustment is allowed to do a rehearing either on our own initiative or for our own reasons. And in this case, our reasons would be in order to enter into the record stronger, clearer arguments as to why we took those actions. Right? So that's why I would recommend that in all four cases we do the rehearings. The technicality is that the rehearing means that, of course, we basically reopen the case and rehear it from the beginning. Of course, we've already done these cases, so we won't probably have much public testimony. That most of the evidence is already there. The cases will go faster, but technically, we can come to a different outcome. Not that we're trying to, but my point is that it's the only way we have to enter into the record stronger arguments for why we did what we did. Any discussion, comment, or question?
Seems like we
No, I
should
didn't
do
hear
that. It seems like we should do that.
Now, you said it's gonna go before the court?
Well, he probably is going to,
We have until the 18th.
they're not likely to take every single case to court like they did the last time, but he's definitely going to take one of them to court, which he thinks is...
One of these.
Well, one of the ones that will have the implications on limiting the case, and he'll probably take another one that he feels has the strongest case for, challenging the constitutional argument that our zoning ordinance is fundamentally flawed. So I'm expecting two of the cases of all of the ones that are currently either pending rehearing or we're still waiting to hear.
Now, how long is it, because they seem to get backlogged on this stuff.
Oh, I have no idea how long the court will take to hear it.
Right,
But
so
it-
we don't do anything until,
Well,
Oh, no, these four, we have to decide, we will rehear, which means that we need to put them on our agenda.
for May.
we
Can we-
won't necessarily rehear them until we vote to rehear them.
Well, we have to we have to vote tonight because the 30 days.
I understand, and where I'm getting at is, in my opinion,
Yes.
we are second guessing our own decisions, and we are
Okay.
setting a precedent. And personally, I would stand by our original decision because we have no new information.
Well, we're not suggesting that we change our decision. What this is an action that would allow us to rehear the case, not change our decision, but strengthen the argument.
I understand.
Yeah,
I
so,
understand. I just don't like the precedent to be set, that's all.
all right, well, that's
My opinion.
your opinion,
Have you
right?
talked to Chris on this?
We can't comment on that.
Oh, no, we can't, okay.
Right.
Would there be any more additional, and if we rehear, should we go for rehearing, will the applicants provide more information to substantiate their case?
If we rehear the case, the applicant can present his case however he wishes. So he
Okay.
may simply bring the record and simply say, I just want to put this before you again, I'll summarize it, but we already have it in writing, and I'm just going to read, he may do that, or he may he may start all over, and with rehearing the
do
case
that.
means we are listening to it from
As
the
if we'd
beginning.
never had before.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Will he have counsel?
He is counsel. Yeah, this case, this is,
These are all-
yeah, this is Johnson.
So all of these are council?
Oh, he
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
Yep. I think our due diligence is to do so, is to rehear.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I'm recommending, is that, I mean, I understand Doug's position, but the only
I
way
agree.
which we,
I do too.
if he decides, if we deny the rehearing
Mm.
and he takes it to court,
Oof.
he takes it to court with relatively weak arguments on our part. And
Yes.
he'll take the weakest case.
Yes, of course.
Because then he'll win it.
Of course.
Right. And then he has a court precedent, which means we'll no longer be able to, unless, of course, the judge decides, in spite of our weak argument, that we're in the right,
Mhm.
which he might.
We don't know that.
We don't know. So that's the risk we take by not rehearing the case, is that we leave it
Yeah.
entirely up to the judge's discretion without hearing a full explanation as to why we did that. So, which we
Right.
did do in the later cases.
Yes. I was thinking, that's where I was going.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So,
Okay,
I mean, I am with Doug.
so now I think we can, unless anyone objects, we can simply have a motion to rehear all four of these cases.
Yeah.
And then, but somebody want to move to that effect?
I'll second. Is that the?
No, I'm asking.
I'll move to rehear all four cases.
Okay, so let's list them explicitly. That's case,
2313, 2315, 2318, and 2319.
okay. Okay, and Jennifer seconded?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me, now, in this case, we're STR cases, it's only the four of us voting.
Mhm.
Mark is
Roll call
recused.
vote by
Right.
the four of you.
Right, so it's Jennifer, Doug, Drew.
Yep.
George, and we
Yeah.
vote yes.
yep.
Nay,
What's that?
nay.
Oh,
What?
Doug votes nay.
Okay, so three.
Even though you,
3-1
okay,
with
okay.
He made the motion.
That's all right.
That's-
I have to bring
Absolutely,
it
you're
up.
right.
I know, I know.
Absolutely.
3-1 it passed.
But three passes, yeah.
Right.
Three vote passes, okay. Okay, so now we've addressed the question of the rehearing, so you'll inform
Now-
Attorney Springer,
You know, Attorney
I'm sorry,
Johnson.
Attorney Johnson.
And we still have the other
Two.
couple that we heard last.
That's what he.
Well, we have,
And yes, they're in the appeal period. And I haven't heard anything. And I think it's up tomorrow.
These are new?
No, these are our existing cases
Okay.
that we heard, that we did decisions on, which I gave you copies of last month, and we haven't heard anything back, right?
Well, I'll tell you what will happen, is he may, it's possible, I'm just
'Cause I haven't heard
speculating, that, you know, the folks who are the applicants may say, well, if you're already taking other cases to court, I'm not gonna spend the money.
Yeah, I haven't heard a peep, so I don't.
I know, but my point, though, is that what'll happen in practicality is if the cases go to court and he wins, then then he'll inform the other people that they won the case, and they'll just,
Okay, so those
they'll
just-
act
I'm just gonna
accordingly,
hold
and then,
those.
and our code enforcement will not be able to do anything.
Because I have them tickled till tomorrow, and I
Yeah.
haven't heard a peep.
Yeah, well, actually, I don't want to rehear all those cases.
I know, me either.
I mean, but I mean, it's a fair thing that one or two of them go to court, and likelihood is that even though there's gonna be a bunch of them, that they'll probably do the same sort of thing. They'll pick one or two cases, stay the others, wait for decisions, and then we'll be instructed how to handle, you know, cases accordingly.
So,
We're speculating.
I don't have to do decisions on these cases. I just send him a notice telling him we're just gonna rehear the 4 cases next month. And I'll put them on my agenda.
Can't hear anything.
Right,
Everything
yeah.
else.
I don't think.
Along with these.
I don't know who's saying
Yeah,
what.
those 2.
Right. Okay, so now we do have a couple of administrative things to do. First of all, just from the formal side, you should all know, Jake, for personal reasons, has not, you know, continued his, that is, the term ended, and he did not, you know, take on another term. The same thing is true of Bill Dempster. He completed his term, and for personal reasons, he has decided that he can't continue.
And we thank them both.
Yes, and we want to go on publicly and say thank you very much.
Yes.
Service was greatly appreciated, and their expertise will be missed.
Yep.
So I think what we will be doing, I will probably be putting a notice in Facebook that we're looking for, you know, people for the zoning board. I haven't done it because I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a somewhat congenial and
Make it seem like
interesting
fun.
manner in the midst of all these controversial cases.
Last year I posted it.
Put one
in the
right
paper.
after you about how much more fun planning board is.
You've already had one on the site.
But at
They've
least,
already had.
but planning board, you have to be voted in. You see, on the zoning board, you just have to convince the selectmen that you're, you know, a warm body and
You're
interested
awake.
in
Fog a
serving.
glass.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Last year I put it in the paper. I put a notice in, remember, I did that for both boards, yours,
Oh, I got it
planning
'cause you were
and zoning,
desperate then.
and
I get it.
I didn't get a bite anywhere.
So I'm
Well-
only here because you're desperate. You were desperate.
Well, the
You're
thing
not
is,
going anywhere. We need you. We need a warm body.
well,
Well, I
we
think too, that we should,
should ask people.
you know, the 5 of us here should be looking, if we know anybody in town. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I ask people at the counter.
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
Twisting your arm.
like Nicole Nordland, you know, maybe she'd like to be part of the.
I think Nicole.
Does
would
anybody
be-
know
Right
Nicole?
there.
Oh, there she is.
Oh, Nicole, raise your hand over here.
You want to be a member?
The zoning board.
Come on, you did great.
She sits down.
Oh, shit, I gotta stand up. Sorry, I got cramp.
Anyway, well, you can't, no,
No,
you can't join us
no.
for now. We're talking
No,
about
not
for
just for 1
a
minute.
term of a year or 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, Charlie horse.
Oh, gosh.
Boy,
Okay,
all these expire? Okay, what,
No, no, no,
Jennifer?
no.
no, okay.
No, those are 26. We're still good. We're good. They expire 26, so they better re-up.
Okay, what are we doing? Can we go on to?
We do have, aside from approving the minutes, we do have another issue, and that is, there are 2 issues in our rules of procedure which we
Yeah.
want to adjust, all right? We'll have to agree on the wording, and it has to be read 3 times. So tonight would be the first time if we agree on them, okay? The first one is quite simple. We want to norm our procedure with what's currently acceptable at the court level, which is that if you're putting an appeal, it may be done via electronic means or email, as opposed to having to show up or have it sent by certified mail, okay? That makes it easier for both Kate and for the other people.
They can do an email and then send a hard copy in the mail. I don't mind that, but that's what I
Yeah.
would like.
Well, the point is, for the purpose of making a deadline,
Right.
they can submit an appeal by email.
Electronically.
Electronically, that automatically creates a record
Yeah.
and makes it easier for everyone concerned, right? That norms our procedure with the way the courts currently do it. And so that's the first one. The second one is a technicality on our procedure. Oops, what was that? Was that my phone? And that is, while I was preparing for this meeting, I realized that in our procedure, what it suggests is you close the public meeting, then go to the writing of your findings of fact, and then appeal to the public for any kind of corrections or additions. But we've already closed the public hearing. So I just wanted to reword that so that we don't close the public hearing before the findings of fact are established, or that we, close the public hearing in the course of the, doing that, at least leave the public hearing open. That's been our practice, as you know, is to go through the findings of fact initially with the public there so that we can interact with them in the case somebody sees an error or wants to add something we forgot, or we want to clarify a point. So those are the two things. Do you have the wording for that? Either one of them?
No, no, I don't. I don't know where, I'm trying to figure out where you want to put it. I think the first one, appeal by email, would be in number 6, I think. I gave everybody a copy of the rules of procedure.
Yeah, you did.
So, in your packets.
Well, 4 would be the public hearing part.
No, and 6 would be the appeals.
6 is appeals, so there you could add something.
I just want to do it the right way, that everybody agrees.
All right, I don't.
It could be,
I don't have one.
where
I
you
don't
say,
know what I'm-
the appeal of a motion for rehearing shall be filed. You could actually put filed electronically.
Maybe filed.
Yeah, it should be shall
in the
be filed. It says
appeals.
shall be filed.
Are you in number 6, Jennifer?
Yeah, I am, I'm reading it.
On page 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Motion for rehearing shall be filed, and you can say at that point how you file it. Electronically, hard copy, whatever, use your language there. Within 30 days of a decision by the zoning board. You just drop it in there.
Electronically.
You just give them the means to file.
Electronically.
Yeah, we can just add at the end of the
And-
sentence, either by email or,
Hard copy.
Well, I'd like a
hard
hard copy too. I like
well,
those.
okay, then.
So email and hard
Filed
copy.
electronically
Well,
and,
it doesn't have to be email, it could be fax.
Yeah, it could be, well,
well, we
Electronically.
don't
Still
do
use it?
fax.
Yeah.
Yeah, and submit, and,
I don't know,
and-
Yes,
doctors
I do.
do.
and by mail or something.
Well,
Yeah.
no, we need to nail it down because we need to read it tonight, so we've
Okay,
accomplished it.
well, you guys tell me what you want me to
O-
do.
Okay, so what do you have right now?
I don't have anything. A motion for hearing shall be filed electronically and within 30 days. But I want a hard copy in there somewhere.
Okay, well, a motion for rehearing shall be filed within 30 days of the decision by the zoning board, period. This may be filed.
Yep.
Electronically.
Either,
Shall be filed
either electronically or by mail.
Or by mail
Yep.
within 30 days.
And then, okay, within 30, that's good.
We already
And
done
then
that.
if
Hold on,
electronically,
hold on.
it must be followed by a hard copy.
Well, hold on. Okay, a motion for rehearing shall be filed within 30 days electronically.
No,
Uh,
no. You finish the first sentence. Motion for rehearing shall be filed within 30 days of a decision by the zoning board, full stop.
Yep.
And then you tell them how you want to file it.
This 30-day period shall be counted in calendar
No.
days, blah,
Yeah,
blah,
but
blah, blah.
before
Shall
that,
be
after
filed
zoning board,
This
you put,
this
by
motion
motion can be filed by email, by electronically, not email,
can be filed
electronically,
electronically
And/or hard copy.
submitted by mail.
and,
Or they can drop it off, they don't have to
Or
mail
hard
it.
copy.
and/or, do you want?
Well, you want an and, don't you?
You want and, right?
So to forget the or.
And
And
I know,
by-
don't
It's
say-
one or the other.
And hard
And
copy.
by mail. I want
Well, it doesn't
by
have to be
mail.
by mail, they could turn up with it, so don't, you know,
This motion can be filed electronically and by mail.
but don't you, but they
That's
could
fine.
turn up
That's
with it.
fine.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, well, the point is,
This is
you
not
want it,
rocket science, it's fine.
That's fine.
You just want a hard copy. You need a wet copy.
well, we can simply say maybe filed electronically and followed up with a hard copy.
Thank you.
Yeah, however they get it there. Right, that was,
That way you get real signatures, I
Followed
assume.
up with
Yeah.
an original, how's that?
Yeah. that's
yeah, you
fine.
need a wet copy, yeah.
With an original.
Okay,
That works, because then we've got an email copy, and then we've got an original with yes, that's.
okay,
that
so
makes
now
sense.
read that, Kate.
All right, so we're leaving the first sentence alone. Second sentence will be this motion to be filed electronically and followed up with an original,
And
Okay.
followed with an original, lose up.
or whatever.
Okay, so leave the up out. Okay, so read it one more time, and we'll count that as the first reading.
This motion can be filed electronically and followed with an original.
Okay. Everybody happy with that?
Fine.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So then the other question that arose in terms of the change has to do with section 4 in the public hearing. Okay, and it has to do with, on page 5, it has to do with items N and O. The chairman shall declare the public hearing closed unless a request is made by an applicant to continue the hearing. The board shall review and deliberate the
Oh, I
information
missed it.
provided. O, the chairman shall present a summary setting forth the facts of the case and the claims made for each side. Opportunity shall be given for correction from the floor. Okay, what I suggest we do is simply reverse N and O. So that the first thing that happens after M, so we'll read them in order the way I'm suggesting. Okay, so if we read M, the Board of Adjustment will hear with interest any evidence that pertains to the facts of the case or how the facts relate to the provisions of the zoning ordinance and state zoning law. The chairman shall present a summary setting forth the facts of the case and the claims made for each side. Opportunity shall be given for correction from the floor. That is now point N. And then currently, then we reverse that, so now point O is the chairman shall declare the public hearing closed unless a request is made by the applicant to continue the hearing. The board shall review and deliberate the information provided.
Yes.
Good.
Okay? So we've read that for the first time, reversing points
N
N
and O.
and O so that they make sense.
Need two more times.
Yep.
Are we doing appointments tonight of chair and vice chair?
Oh, I suppose, are
Or
we
do you
supposed
want
to
to
do
wait
that?
till, you don't, I mean,
can
do you want to
wait
wait
till-
till Sharon
Yeah.
comes back?
Yeah,
I think you
let's do
should,
that,
'cause I don't
yes.
think you should do that without her, but I just wanted to bring it up.
No, that's right, I'd forgotten about that.
No, it's all right.
But I think we did we do it in April, or did we do it in May? It's okay.
We usually do it after town meeting, but it's all right.
Yeah,
Wait till Sharon
that's
comes
fine.
back. I think you should.
Yeah, but we need to do it in May, because I won't be here in June,
Oh,
which is a problem, probably.
through, not here.
Okay,
Yeah, we need. yeah.
okay, so now, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I thought the minutes, which Kate did with the help of the electronic,
And they were very long. And
they're very long,
There are
but
not a lot of changes.
I did not,
I didn't even read them yet.
I went through it.
yeah. it was-
yeah, so, does anybody have amendments
That's
to
all we
the,
have.
to the minutes?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, down the bottom of page 1, you got, okay, I'll read the thing. Variance request from Jonathan Springer, Esquire of Springer Law Office, authorized agent for authorized agent.
Gotcha.
Just
I'll
cross
take
that
one of
out.
them out.
Yep. Then over to page 2.
Yep.
The second to the last paragraph on the bottom. You've got Springer also addressed the town zoning ordinance requirements and how the proposal aimed to meet or seek.
That doesn't make sense.
and how the proposal
And to be, or seek.
aim to meet or
Or
seek
seek.
5 variance requests?
Yeah,
Maybe that's correct.
yeah, that's
That
all
makes
right.
sense.
Okay, good.
Good.
You know, that I doubt.
I'll put attorney in front of Springer.
Okay, then on page 3,
Oh, I have a change, everybody.
Yep.
Attorney Sullivan in the third paragraph should be Attorney Springer.
Which
I-
page?
Page 3, third paragraph. I put Attorney Sullivan because they're both S's. and-
okay, so that's Springer.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
So that
just
should be Springer?
Okay.
Yes.
But I have a
That was
couple
my fault.
here.
Okay, what do you got?
At the end of the first paragraph on page 3, the antennas need 10 feet of separation between them for each of the antennas.
For each.
And then third paragraph, middle of,
Yeah, excuse me, so you take out one of
Yeah.
the betweens, right, in your,
The antennas need 10 feet of separation between
Each antenna.
each of the antennas, he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, the
And-
actual term should be antenna array, but it
Yeah, it
doesn't.
should.
and,
I agree
Well,
with you
that,
there,
you're
Doug.
not going
Actually,
to start
that's
adding
better.
things, it's the.
Yeah,
word
antenna
said.
array.
and then you've got Hertz, H-U-R-T-S.
Where are we?
In the middle,
Oh,
in the third.
Hertz.
Okay, I believe it's H-E-R-T-Z or H-U-R?
It's H-E-R-T-Z,
It's-
yeah.
Which
Yes,
one is
I-
it?
guys,
H-U-R-T-Z?
You know what, I did a spell check and it picked up,
Or it's-
wait a minute, where are we?
In the middle of the
Right
third
there.
or
700
further
megahertz.
down.
Hertz. I wrote
The word-
H-U-R-T-S.
Yeah.
That's,
And
sounds like,
megahertz
a-
is
sounds like
one
a spell
word.
check.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't pick up.
But it's
It's-
megahertz is one word.
it's-
Right.
And you can actually write MHZ if you really wanted to.
No, I'm going to do it
Isn't
the
it
way it says.
H-E-R-T-Z or?
It's H-E-R-T-Z,
Yeah,
Yeah, I just,
and it's one word.
yeah, the mega,
yep, and I did it twice. In the second line,
Okay,
you'll
good.
see it. I got that.
good, okay. Then, page 4.
Yeah.
The second big paragraph.
We've driven everybody out.
Okay, Epstein disagreed with the noise of fumes from the generator and also stated
For the
Where are
tower.
we?
And
that the
also
tower, okay,
stated
because you
that
said.
the tower
and
would be-
Epstein
yep,
stated,
gotcha.
but he would, okay?
Yep.
And when he asks, in that same or right below that, he asks the ZBA to explain
When they must grant a variance.
how they must grant a variance.
And then Drew did a good job explaining it.
Yeah. And
Shouldn't that be
then-
how,
What?
not when?
Wait a minute, must grant a variance.
When? No, he asked
said-
when.
Well, we
Oh,
didn't
did he ask
answer
when?
him.
He
Okay,
asked
so that's
when.
correct.
Yes, that is a
I-
quote, that is a.
I'll stand
that
corrected.
is- Yeah, he did, he asked when they must grant a variance.
Well, we didn't answer it then.
Drew did. He stated when a variance is granted that it must meet the 5 criteria, and he explained what the 5 criteria are. So he did answer his question.
Okay.
Well, he also asked, you know, that's interesting, somehow, because when he asked the first question, is that, did he ask, because he asked one time if there's any situation in which a variance must be granted, and I said, well, there's a special exception, must be granted if they meet the if they meet the criteria. But, yeah, anyway, I mean, what's said here is correct.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. The only thing, next to the last paragraph from the bottom, in the next hearing, they will have the balloon test results, and the ZBA should have their report from there.
It should be results.
Yep.
I don't
yeah.
know,
That sounds good.
okay.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
These are just little stupid things that I.
Well, choose
Takes one to know one.
On the middle of.
with one hand.
Page 5,
Mhm.
case 2313, I put, so this purpose of this hearing, it's the purpose of this meeting, of this hearing.
Yeah.
Did these for AI's help?
I know, huh?
So that's.
There wasn't,
yeah,
and then
that's what you-
nothing, I had nothing on 6. I had nothing on 7. Nothing on 8. Nothing on 9. It's not to say, I'm sure Sharon would help. She's amazing. Okay, on page 10.
I'm a terrible proofreader.
2318.
Yep.
Again, the
Yep,
purpose
yep,
of this
I
hearing
know,
instead of this.
I cut and paste when I was doing
Yeah.
it.
Let's see, nothing on 11, I don't think I had anything beyond this. Nothing. 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 They were really good. We had it all together.
I couldn't
I
move
thought
my
that was great.
wrist the next day.
I will
at
take
all.
credit for being here, but I was actually in Phnom Penh.
Oh.
That's great, you were not here. Put you on there.
Friends from Vietnam.
That's right, you're here for March, not February.
Do I get paid for the night
Yeah, you
anyways?
do.
Nope.
You don't.
Do any of us?
Okay. All right.
Okay, so
Pay-
we have a
we'll pay you
motion to
double for
approve
that
the
night.
minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So that's
I'm
4
going
of
to
us,
put
right?
as amended with typographical error. Okay.
As amended, yeah.
Typo.
Okay, so let's see. I don't think there's anything else. And you'll put on the agenda for next month the election of officers.
I just brought it up. I didn't have it on my agenda tonight, but it was on my brain. It's on my list of things. Because I'm doing it with everybody else, so I was like, oh, and I thought of it before I did this posting. I mean, I did it after this posting, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So does that mean I'm going to go from alternate to being a board member or staying alternate? Possibly.
I think probably what's going to happen, well, we'll do that
Yeah.
but I think we'll probably just elevate you to a regular member, and then we don't have to, what's going to happen is that we're going to end up with no alternates except for one.
Okay.
Well, on the assumption that, but like I said, as a request to all of you, you might mention to your friends
Yeah.
that, there's a position open
There's fun things to do
or
on
several.
Wednesday night.
We're allowed to have 5 regulars and up to 5 alternates.
Mhm.
And right now, we have 1 regular alternate, shall I say, because
Yeah.
Mark can't be in,
We can't discuss certain things,
well, yeah, the reality is that because he's chairman of the planning board,
Yeah.
he can only be an alternate on this board.
Right.
Right.
Oh, I bet you are.
Anything else, Kate? Does
I
any-
gave you all,
Does anybody have any other business that we need to address?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay.
It's the only thing I vote for. I don't vote for anything else.
Kate, you got these chairs, right?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna hand these.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark, Drew, I'm gonna have Mark abstain from the minutes because